Even villains have levels, our protagonist mused. Some punish the main character with relentless torment, while others needlessly grab at their ankles before vanishing into obscurity. Foolish and annoying, hardly a threat. She, a bookish girl, sat before an altar, the backdrop filled with the murmur of insults. She's Baek Ji-Yukong's daughter, someone hissed. A nuisance to him while he lived, now wailing for her father. Another voice chimed in, trash then and trash now. Looking up at the altar, tears blurring her vision, she thought, just as jewels shine brighter beside refuse, an insignificant villainous side, character exists only to highlight the protagonist. A sudden death jolted her with memories of her past life. Biting her lip, she thought, why did this novel come to this? It's so similar to the martial arts novels I used to read. The novel's protagonist, Nam Gong Ryuchung's teacher, the fourth young master of the Baek Ji clan, one of the 10 great martial arts families. A holy sacrifice to awaken the protagonist, unbeknownst to her. Suddenly, a jade cup shattered in her hand. She stared at the broken pieces, a tremor running through her. This is strange, she thought. It's been years since I read this novel. If I remember the future developments clearly, in the novel, father's death means about 10 years of carnage, and this character dies too. The whispers around her intensified. She had broken the glass, bringing misfortune at the funeral, someone added. She doesn't even have any talent in martial arts, another remarked. The criticisms fueled her growing unease. The scene shifted. A figure ran through the night, guided only by the light of the full moon. Let's run away, the fleeing figure thought. No one will know of such a quiet villain. Run, she told herself. Keep running. Forget the original story. Start anew. A flash of light. The world turned upside down. As she struggled to comprehend what was happening, a man's voice muttered, disappointing. He approached the fallen body. This is all Baek Ji's daughter amounts to. Lying in a pool of blood, she questioned why. Her fading vision caught a pair of legs walking towards her. If there are trash-level villains like me, she thought, there must also be a dark side, the greatest enemy in a villain's life. The man leaned down. Curious, aren't you? He asked. Just as he began to explain, darkness consumed her. Silence. A cry. It hurts. It hurts. And in the background, a clear voice laced with disdain. Such a useless daughter. The pained voice continued. It hurts, father. It hurts. Please help me. A small face bolted upright in bed, eyes darting around the room. Am I back from that nightmare? She wondered. Wasn't I dead? Then a warm hand gently grasped hers, and her gaze softened. She looked at the person beside her. A gentle face, etched with worry, tears welling in his eyes as he looked at her with concern. It was Baek Ji-Yukong. Father, she whispered. She wasn't sure if she had died. That's why she was reminiscing. Her father, admired by many women for his handsome appearance, but as a teacher. Responsible for the protagonist's mental growth, he possessed a strong and upright character, different from his outward appearance. It was because of this personality that the protagonist had only seen her father's tears during their time together. Tears streamed down her father's handsome face like a river as he softly apologized, saying he should have kept her by his side long ago. It felt just as she remembered. A gentle laugh escaped her lips. This must be nostalgia, she thought. Father, no. Papa, she pleaded, don't cry. This was the first time she had seen her father, so distraught, even though they had lived together for several years. She remembered that as she grew older, her relationship with her father had only deteriorated. The young girl turned away, wiping away her tears. She couldn't even recall the shape of his smile, let alone his surprised expression. She couldn't even remember his final expression. He was such a good person. She felt unworthy. Why did he have to sacrifice himself? Even though he was just a character in a novel, clumsy as he was always sincere to her. She only realized this after he was gone. As she wept, her father grew more flustered. Whether in her past life or this one, he was the only one who gave everything for her. After venting her emotions, she propped herself up and told him she was sorry for everything over the years. Looking at him sincerely, she told him she loved him. At this moment, she didn't care if this was a memory, a dream, or even hell. None of it mattered. She finally did what she wanted to do, and that was enough. He looked surprised, and she was content. Ha! She chuckled to herself. He looked so surprised. Now she could finally close her eyes in peace. But instead, she fell into a warm, secure embrace. She felt breathless. Why did it feel so real? It was her father's clean scent, just as she remembered. Her father spoke, his voice filled with relief. He thought she resented him, But that wasn't the case. He was sorry he hadn't understood her heart until now. It was all because he hadn't done enough. Her father kept apologizing, and it left her bewildered. Even in a dream, this was too realistic. Was this nostalgia? Had she really returned to the past? Could she receive love this time? Bai Lying sat up in bed, her face pale, dark circles under her eyes, as if she had just awakened from a long coma. She jolted alert at the sound of someone calling, "Miss," and looked towards the source of the voice. A maid, who looked like she loathed her job, entered the room. The maid, holding a basin of water, called out loudly, "Wake up." This maid was Tang Ji, attending to Bai Lying. Tang Ji announced she had brought water for washing and asked if Bai Lying needed assistance. Bai Lying shook her head vigorously, refusing the offer. The maid sneered at Bai Lying and slammed the door shut. Bai Lying sighed, muttering to herself, "So noisy, first thing in the morning." Outside the door, she could hear the maid complaining loudly about her. No matter how many times she called, she couldn't hear. That Bai Lying just sat on the bed all day dazed. Hadn't she died and come back to life an idiot? It was shocking that she was called a cripple in internal energy. Bai Lying sighed inwardly. "I can hear you just fine." The maid continued, "Who would waste spirit medicine on a good-for-nothing?" Bai Lying sat in a sparsely decorated room, the surrounding atmosphere thick with disdain for her. She finally realized that she truly had returned. Something had gone wrong during her cultivation training. The energy within her body had gone haywire. Although she had miraculously survived, her energy core was shattered. Clutching her chest, she could still feel the lingering pain. She had returned to the moment she became a cripple, forever unable to cultivate. The Bai family was a prestigious family in political circles. Bai Lai Pei, the head of the Bai family, had 3 wives and 4 children. Among them, the youngest son, born to the third madam, was hailed as a once-in-a-century genius, possessing both handsome features and a gentle yet upright character. Bai Lying, outwardly flawless, intolerant of injustice, and skilled in martial arts, coughed proudly. It was an imitation of her father, Baek Jae-yukong. She walked towards the water basin. She was the daughter her father had suddenly brought home one day. Leaning over the basin, she stared at her reflection. Wow, she thought, I looked like a ghost. Of course, when she had been brought back, the entire household had been thrown into chaos. A daughter to an unmarried son, a bastard child with an unknown mother. Her grandfather, Bai Lai Pei, who had held such high expectations for his son, had been furious. But her father's stubbornness had been unbreakable. It was a moment etched in her memory, the unwanted child taken into the Bai family. Back then, she had thought her father didn't love her either. But now she thought, now this is good. It's not too late. Scooping water into her small hands, she washed her face, thinking that her father's death was still more than a decade away. This time, she would save him. Bai Lying paced back and forth in front of the door, a mixture of frustration and fear churning within her. She was worried she would become too nervous. Taking a deep breath, she told herself to calm down. She had already completed the first step. Though mortifying, she had told him she loved him. She had to save her father, and she had to survive. She continued her pep talk. She could do this. Dying of embarrassment wasn't actual death. Lying, you're awake. Her father called. She pushed open the door, her face flushed and stiff. Coughing shyly, she ran towards him, only to trip over a bamboo scroll lying on the floor. Stumbling forward, face planting towards the hard wooden planks. Oh no, I'm going down. Reality didn't quite meet expectations. Just as she braced for impact, her father caught her. He told her not to run in the room. Mortified, she wanted to say something, but then she noticed the dark circles under his eyes. She thought about what she had tripped over, and then she saw the books, scrolls, pills, and medicinal herbs scattered on the floor. Bamboo scrolls. No, these were... The realization hit her. He had been up all night trying to heal her. Seeing her expression, her father asked, "What's wrong? Are you uncomfortable?" Looking up at him, she reached out her arms, asking for a hug. With a warm, bright smile, she asked, "Aren't you going to hug me?" Her father looked surprised, but he shyly picked her up. His body was stiff, his posture awkward. She felt a pang of something uncomfortable. It was clear he had never held a child before. But neither had she, not in this lifetime, held her father. He asked if she had slept well last night. She answered, "Mm." He asked how she felt, and she said, "Good." He shyly looked away, telling her not to endure any pain and to tell him if she had a fever. Seeing his expression, she agreed, snuggling closer to his chest. Her father said he would bring her some medicine. She inwardly cringed, and so she ate her meal and, under her father's gentle, watchful smile, lay in bed and drank a bowl of medicine. Then she saw the doctor and received treatment. Her father stayed by her side throughout the entire process. Afterward, she drank more medicine, slept for a while, and then drank even more medicine. She felt like she had consumed all the precious medicines in the world. After a while, she woke up. She had fallen asleep during her treatment. Lying asked where her father was. The doctor scoffed, a displeased coldness in his voice. TSK, the third young master, went off after doing such a useless thing. Lying told the doctor to wait, but the door was firmly shut, a barrier she couldn't reconcile with her own intentions. She stepped out, crossing the courtyard. An unnerving quiet blanketed the courtyard. Her quarters, shared with her father, were tucked away in the westernmost corner of the vast bakery estate. Her father's original residence had been elsewhere, but when he brought her back to the family, her grandfather had declared he couldn't bear the sight of him. He had banished them to this remote, desolate corner. Lying approached, her steps measured. The clamor of hurried activity reached her ears. One voice urged others onward. Another replied that he'd been sound asleep. Honestly, one man chided another. You're always sleeping and dozing. Of course you wouldn't know. They just returned. What? The patriarch. There's a banquet tonight. The lady of the house has ordered only half the servants to remain in the residences. The rest are to attend the main hall. The servants' chatter filled the air. Lying listened, a thought taking root. Grandfather was back. Bakery Pekiak, her grandfather, a man of formidable talent, had elevated the once unremarkable bakery clan to one of the 10 great martial families. He typically spent the entire year in secluded cultivation. Upon emerging, he would immediately embark on a journey, claiming the need for fresh air. Even when she had lost control of her energy in the past, her grandfather had been traveling. A chilling realization struck her. If he was back from his travels, it was today. Today was the day. Her frail body, still recovering, propelled itself into a desperate run. The incident that had truly ignited her grandfather's hatred for her and her father. If she didn't stop her father now, he would be in grave danger. Lying gasped, bracing herself against the wall, her breath ragged. Damn it, she cursed her still weakened body. Struggling to breathe, she overheard the servants gossiping about her, their words like daggers. Her dantian was shattered, the core of her life force broken. Even her origins were questionable, useless, a disgrace. Lying fought for composure, forcing herself to calm down. This wasn't the time. If she couldn't run, she would walk. Even if she was just a waste of a villainous supporting character in this story, she had her past life's memories. Memories that made her all too likely to become a villain seeking revenge. And today's events would only fuel that possibility. Gripping the wall, Lying forced herself forward, step by agonizing step. She was no longer the naive 6-year-old she had once been. Finally, she reached the main gate, breathless and unsteady. The guard inquired after her well-being, and she managed a choked, incomplete reply. Watching her cough, the guard observed that she looked far from well and asked her purpose in coming here. She barely uttered the word father when a roar shook both her and the guard. Preposterous! The patriarch, Bakery Pekiak, bellowed. How long will Eui Kong continue to disappoint me? Why hasn't he come to his senses yet? The guard spoke to Lying nervously. She must be looking for the third young master, he realized, but she had already heard. This was no time to deliver her message. The guard urged Lying to return, given her weakened state. Lying looked at the room beyond the guard. Only those acknowledged by her grandfather could enter there, those recognized by the family and holding positions of importance within the clan. She met none of those criteria. Frustration gnawed at her. She had to find a way. Just as she racked her brain, a voice called out, "Is that Bakery Lying?" The voice belonged to Bakery Eurun, her father's half-sister. The guard bowed in greeting. Eurun questioned Lying's presence. Had Yai Kong brought her? The guard informed Eurun that Lying had come alone. Alone? Eurun scoffed. How could Lying come here? This isn't a place for her to set foot. The maids in waiting behind her stifled giggles. Yin recalled how every encounter with her aunt in her past life had filled her with dread. If their eyes met, her aunt would fly into a rage, demanding to know how Yin dared look directly at her. If Yin lowered her gaze, her aunt would scold her for not looking at her. If Yun bowed, her aunt would ask whom she was bowing to. If she didn't bow, her aunt would shriek about Yun ignoring her. No matter what Yun did, her aunt could find fault. The verbal abuse eventually escalated into physical abuse. Yun used to believe her aunt's hatred was justified. After all, she was crippled, unable to cultivate martial arts, despite being a member of the Bai family. But what her aunt truly loathed. Yun's thoughts were interrupted by Yulin's sharp voice. Why was Yun spacing out? Had Yun become arrogant now that her father had returned, deliberately ignoring her? Those nearby, hearing her aunt's voice, assumed Yun's arrogance had caused the problem. Yun bowed and apologized to her aunt, saying it had been a while and she couldn't bow properly due to her poor health. Then she began to cough. It wasn't an act. She genuinely felt ill, Yun thought. She wouldn't let her aunt berate her so easily anymore. Suddenly, everyone around them realized it was her aunt who was harassing her sick niece. This time, Yun's illness worked in her favor. Her aunt, momentarily flustered, retorted that if Yun could come here, she must be feeling much better. Yun covered her mouth, pressing a hand to her chest, considering the best way to respond. If she said she had recovered, her aunt would simply nag her. But if she said she was still ill, she would be sent back to the ship. She stammered, explaining that there was no one on the ship. She had searched everywhere, but everyone seemed busy, so she had come alone. Household chores and servant management were the responsibility of her grandfather's second wife, her aunt's mother. The servants were lazy, because her second grandmother indulged them. As long as her grandfather remained unaware, everything was fine. The shouting from behind the wall ceased. Her grandfather was one of the most powerful masters here. He must have heard everything. Her aunt had spoken that way precisely because she knew he would hear. Her aunt nearly exploded, but restrained herself, gritting her teeth as she asked Yun if she was mistaken. The servants would never behave like that. Stop talking nonsense and go back, she snapped, pointing at Yun. Just then, a booming voice called for Yulins to enter, and by Jiayun as well, startling everyone outside the door. Her aunt glared at Yun, and Yun glared back. She was no longer a child to be fooled by such petty tricks. Did her aunt even know how old she was? Yun mentally added her past and present ages together. Inside her grandfather's residence, he sat with an air of authority, an oppressive aura radiating from him, intimidating the petite Yun. She understood why people said her grandfather could kill with his presence alone. She looked up and saw her father, kneeling before her grandfather. "Father," she whispered. Her father turned, his expression tense when he saw her. She knew the atmosphere was heavy. Her grandfather barked at Yulins, demanding to know why she was there. Yulins nervously replied that her father had returned, and, as his daughter, she had come to see him. See him? Yulin's father questioned sharply. Her aunt used Yun to change the subject, prompting Yun to join her in bowing to their grandfather. Yun knew her aunt's game. She was using her to divert their grandfather's attention. Yun and her aunt bowed to their grandfather. He stared at them, as if searching for some hidden motive. He asked if greetings had already been exchanged. Yaron replied that they had, and that grandfather had ordered his daughter to leave. Iron, her face etched with surprise, asked what their father had said. "Didn't you hear?" Yaron replied. Iron nervously denied hearing anything. But then she asked why their father would do such a thing. Her older brother, standing silently beside their father, shook his head, watching his foolish sister. He too seemed tense. Their father demanded to know when Iron had gained a right to enter his chambers. Resentment flared at his harsh tone. "Father," she cried out, a desperate plea that only fueled his anger. He released her, his voice booming. "Is this how someone bearing the Beckery name behaves?" Iron crumpled to her knees, apologizing, admitting her fault. Arms crossed, their father shook his head, refusing to acknowledge her. Yun, a silent witness, thought to herself, "Grandfather hates repeating himself." Iron, jaw clenched, looked pleadingly at her brother. He cleared his throat. Iron should have realized her mistake by now. He offered tentatively. Iron immediately began to agree, confessing her wrongdoing, but before she could finish, her father silenced her with a sharp word. Defeated, Iron bowed her head and retreated from the room. The door clicked shut behind her. Only Yun, her father, still kneeling, and those granted permission to remain were left in the room. Yun thought, if I say the wrong thing, I might end up like Aunt. Suddenly, a boy asked Yun if she was all right, if it was okay for her to be wandering around alone. It was Becky Myaung, son of Becky Emuk, who stood beside the patriarch. Yun's uncle, Emuk, gestured for his son to come closer, and then beckoned Yun forward as well. Emuk was a benevolent man, known for his fairness. Yin noted how much her cousin, the eldest grandson, Becky Myaung, resembled his father, Becky Emuk. Yin took a step forward, but instead of moving towards her uncle and cousin, she knelt beside her father. The action surprised everyone in the room. Yin knew that if she had foolishly gone to her uncle's side, judging by what she had witnessed at her father's funeral in her past life, she would have been scolded by her grandfather. She had heard her uncle and aunt talking about her father then. Her aunt had said, with a chilling lack of remorse, that she knew from the moment Kong became arrogant, simply for his skill with a sword, that he would bring about his own downfall. Her uncle had replied, telling her not to be so obvious, that they simply needed to quietly secure their own position. Yin knew their intentions were no different from her aunt's. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness washed over Yun, and she nearly lost her balance. Her father's hand shot out, steadying her. He helped her up, murmuring that the floor was cold. My body is weak, Yin thought. It's hard to even keep my balance. Her father had already turned to their grandfather, pleading that she wasn't well, but her grandfather cut him off. He started to argue, but felt a small, gentle hand placed on his, a silent comfort. Grandfather, noticing the small gesture, observed the pair. He addressed Yun directly. Becky Yun, do you know why Gang is kneeling before me? Yun replied that she did not. Grandfather then asked why she was kneeling if she didn't know the reason. Yun gathered her thoughts. I have heard that before I was born, she began. Father never once disappointed grandfather. I feel that this is my fault. Grandfather raised a hand, as if to pronounce judgment. Since you speak so well, Becky Yun, and since you are here, he said, I will ask you directly. A servant brought forth an ornate box. Yin knew instinctively what it contained. The 1,000 longevity golden pill. A gleaming golden pill rested elegantly within. Yun's uncle turned to their grandfather, a look of surprise on his face. Her cousin, Myaung, puffed up with pride as she explained the significance of the item to Yun, assuming that, being relatively new to the family, Yun might not know what the 1,000 longevity golden pill was. Yin thanked her cousin, but demurred, saying she'd already heard of it. It's a medicine that can bring the dead back to life, isn't that right? She asked, glancing towards her grandfather. He stroked his beard, a slow nod confirming her words. Myaung looked astonished. You're well informed, she exclaimed. Yin smiled inwardly. Her cousin was still young and not adept at hiding her expressions. Though, if she were honest, Yin wasn't sure she herself could mask her own feelings very well either. Her grandfather's voice, deep and resonant, filled the room. You're correct, he said. Just one pill is enough to revive someone on the brink of death. The recipe for this medicine has been lost to time. There are very few left in the world, and even a king's ransom couldn't buy them. It was pure luck that I managed to acquire this one. His tone shifted, a note of censure creeping in. Kong requested this pill for you, he said, pointing a finger at Yin. Do you believe yourself worthy of such a precious treasure? Her father, Kong, opened his mouth to retort, but Yin placed a hand on his arm, silencing him. She met her grandfather's gaze, her voice steady. Yes, she answered, but I don't need it now. The words hung in the air. I've learned from dying twice, she continued. In my past life, I constantly apologized, bowed and scraped, debased myself. But even then, I was still looked down upon. I remember being called a useless burden. One look at Kong's child is enough to understand what kind of man he is, she'd heard them say. Now, Yin understood. Debasing herself meant demeaning her father, making it harder for him to protect her. This time, things would be different. She had made up her mind. If I may, Yin said, her voice soft but firm, I would like to ask everyone here a question. Her grandfather gestured for her to proceed. Can a 1,000 longevity golden pill restore my chi-hai? The question rippled through the room, a wave of shock washing over the assembled family. Now that I think about it, she added, I've never heard of such a case, even though it is the 1,000 longevity golden pill. Yin trailed off, catching her father's serious expression. She guessed he was thinking the same thing. The pill's reputation and effects were undeniable, but reviving the dying and restoring a shattered chi-hai were two entirely different matters. She knew medicine should be used correctly according to its specific effects. Her condition wasn't fatal. In her past life, her father had obtained the 1,000 longevity golden pill from her grandfather. But contrary to her father's hopes, her chi-hai hadn't healed. The pill had had some effect, healing the internal injuries caused by the rampaging chi, but the most crucial issue, her fractured chi-hai, remained unchanged. She looked up at her father. I'm fine, she told him. Being with you like this makes me happy. In her past life, her father had endured much resentment for turning a sickly child into a healthy, yet ultimately useless, individual. Yun felt a cough rising in her throat, but if she coughed now, all her previous efforts would be for naught. So she fought it down. Surprised by Yun's filial piety, her grandfather turned to Yikong. "What are your thoughts on Yun's words?" he asked. Yun squeezed her father's hand, looking at him with a reassuring gaze. He smiled gently at her, but his resolve remained unshaken. How could it as a father? As long as there was a sliver of hope, he wouldn't give up. Yun's heart sank. All her efforts wasted. Would this cause another rift between her father and grandfather? Her grandfather sighed, rubbing his temples. "My son is as stubborn as a mule," he muttered. To Yun and her father's astonishment, he told them both to stand. They exchanged glances, making sure they hadn't misheard. Yun offered a silent prayer of thanks. It seemed her grandfather wasn't angry. The father-son relationship was still intact. Yikong reached out to help Yin to her feet, but she lost her balance and stumbled. A veil seemed to fall over her, muffling sounds and making her coughs tickle. Yin saw blood on her small hand. Could sitting on the cold floor for so long have caused her to cough up blood? The thought struck her as absurd. Then, darkness consumed her. Her father called her name over and over, but she didn't respond. In an exquisitely decorated room, Yun's father sat beside her, his face etched with worry. "Why won't you wake up, Yun?" he pleaded. A young, handsome man, clad in ivory robes and bearing a sword, knelt before a small child. Even someone like her, who scraped by on the streets, knew that men like him were rarely seen in those parts. And he certainly shouldn't have any interest in her. "Your name is Yun," he said, Yun with the unusual character, "isn't it? I'll come and get you. I am your father." Fear pricked at her as she took his hand for the first time, but she couldn't contain a burgeoning excitement. Yet, upon returning to the Bai estate, her excitement shattered the moment she crossed the threshold. "You useless waste." The words jolted Yun awake, her breath catching in ragged gasps. The cruel, venomous words still clung to her. Yun, her father called, trying to steady her. Still gasping, she asked where they were. He told her not to move, his voice laced with concern. "How do you feel?" he asked. "I'm all right," she managed, "just a bit of a headache. Nothing else." After a careful examination, satisfied she was unharmed, his worry morphed into anger. "Why did you go there?" he demanded. "You must be more careful." Frightened by his outburst, she apologized, murmuring, "I was wrong." "Wrong about what?" her grandfather asked. Igong addressed his father. "Yun is awake." Her grandfather replied, "If anyone sees us like this, they'll think I'm bullying her. And remember, this is my residence." Igong immediately apologized. "Whatever," her grandfather replied languidly. Yun was surprised to find herself in her grandfather's residence. Bai Hutang, another man, entered, carrying a tray of medicine. Igong thanked him for coming personally. "I just collected it from the servants out front," the man replied. He was Zhang Shuyang, her grandfather's trusted aide. He offered Yun a gentle smile. She had never crossed paths with him in her previous life. Lost in thought, her father placed the medicine bowl in her hands. She hesitated, apprehensive about the bitter taste. "Don't worry, Yun," Igong encouraged. "Physician Su said it won't be too bad." Surprised, she clarified, former imperial physician Su. She had been treated by him much later in her past life, but that was much further down the line. She couldn't understand what was happening. Igong explained that physician Su had been summoned urgently by her grandfather to attend to her. Yin was astonished that her grandfather would do such a thing. Her father added, "Grandfather even came to see you while you were unconscious. You should stay at my residence," her grandfather declared, "and receive treatment for the next 3 days while I'm here." No other family member had ever stayed at his residence before, not even his eldest son, Bai Yimo, or his grandson, Bai Mingyong. "Thank you for the treatment, grandfather," Yun murmured. "Don't mention it," he replied. "If you're ill, you should say so. How would anyone know otherwise?" Igong was visibly moved by his father's words. Glancing at the small, delicate Yun, her grandfather told his son, "Take good care of her, or you'll be collecting a corpse." Father and daughter both sighed in relief as the old man left the room. "He may sound harsh," Igong said, "but grandfather cares about you deeply." Yin asked, "Will you be staying at Bai Hutong too, father?" He nodded. "Of course. I can't trust anyone else." A surge of joy coursed through her. Clenching her fists, she felt everything click into place. Entering Bai Hutong, Yin was surprised by Sukti's sudden appearance. Thinking about it, these were all good omens. If this was the case, perhaps she could look forward to a budding relationship between the two of them. Her father called her name in a calm voice. She noticed a difference in her father, Ikong's tone. He asked her why she was hiding things. Since she had been concealing so much, she didn't know what he was specifically referring to for a moment. Ikong added, it was about the cruel treatment she had been enduring from the servants. She recalled the events before entering by Hadong. Her conversation with the gatekeeper and her aunt. Since her grandfather had heard it, her father must have heard it too. She reassured him, saying it was all right since he was there. Ikong said they were looking down on her. She remained silent, tacitly acknowledging it. Her anxious father said that today she had collapsed in front of people, but if she were to collapse when she was alone, he clenched his fists, unable to finish the rest of his sentence. When she regained her composure, she saw her father's eyes were red. Ikong stood up and said, this wouldn't do. He had to report this matter to her mother. Yin almost coughed up blood, stopping him. Her father replied, her mother should know about this too. What would happen if her mother found out through rumors? Yun silently shed tears. If her grandmother's mood was ruined, her father's reputation would decline further. He was already a thorn in her grandmother's side. She looked at her father's eyes, as tall and straight as bamboo stalks. He probably knew he was disliked by her grandmother, but still, because this was the right thing to do, he wanted to report it. Yin replied that reporting it was pointless. This wasn't something that could be resolved simply by her grandmother punishing the servants. Yun's father replied, of course. She explained her point of view. If her grandmother punished them, things might appear better on the surface, but would they truly realize their wrongdoing? Would punishing the inner court servants be the end of it? What about the outer court servants? Did they not know that the servants had been ignoring her all along? She added that the problem wouldn't be solved until her grandfather accepted her. Yun's father looked shocked, while her grandfather seemed to be pondering the meaning of Yun's words from outside the door. Outside, her grandfather and his trusted aide, Zhang Shuliang, stood on either side of the door, eavesdropping on the father and daughter's conversation. Yun's father asked her if she resented her grandfather. She sharply replied no. Her father said she didn't have to lie. Yun scratched her cheek and said she truly didn't hate him. She understood her grandfather. He was angry with her because he loved her father. She nonchalantly said, while scratching the back of her head and smiling, that it would be strange if her grandfather wasn't angry about her existence. She thought to herself that in their world, there was no system to prove blood relations. Mimicking her grandfather's tone, she said, what's done is done. So what if there's a child out there? Isn't it good that there's a granddaughter now? Then she asked her father if it wouldn't be stranger if her grandfather said that. Zhang Shuliang chuckled, while her grandfather glared at him in annoyance. Yun's father exclaimed, how could she say such things at only 6 years old? He widened his eyes as he saw Yun jump onto his lap. She hugged him tightly, saying contentedly that she would try harder and that her grandfather would definitely acknowledge her. She thought that the novel never mentioned how her grandfather viewed her father. But in reality, just like her relationship with her father, their relationship only worsened. But she clearly remembered her grandfather's bloodshot eyes at her father's funeral in her past life. That alone was enough. It was enough for her to view her grandfather in a positive light. The rain outside continued to pour, soaking everything. Yin was startled awake by the sound of the rain. She noticed the window was ajar, rain dripping in, speckling the sill and the table beside it. Despite her lingering illness, she thought of the wiping it would need. The treatment at the Bai family's protectorate had been so different. She hadn't needed to ask for anything. Every need was anticipated. Servants brought warm water for washing, tea. Everything was provided, and they were all so kind. They spoke to her with such respect. Now, back in her own quarters, her head throbbed, and she longed to sleep. The sound of raised voices outside jolted Yun awake. She sat up, wondering what the commotion was about. A maid was shouting in the corridor. She complained that her leg was throbbing with pain, all because another maid, Dang Ji, had been told to hold her tongue. The two of them bickered loudly, Yun's head buzzing with the noise. Dang Ji, her personal maid, had she swallowed a horn or something to be gallivanting about outside? Dang Ji's voice rose in indignant protest. It was preposterous, she shrieked. Did the other maid think she was truly one of the Bai family, daring to go to the central hall? The other maid retorted that everyone in the household knew by now, so what could be done? Chun Dao had received 20 lashes and was still laid up. Dang Ji had gotten off lightly in comparison. Gotten off lightly. Dang Ji's voice dripped with outrage. The other maid replied that, of course, Chun Dao was resting. How could she work after 20 lashes? She probably wouldn't be able to move for a week. Yun seemed to want to disappear into the woodwork. Finally, the maids moved further away, and Yun breathed a sigh of relief. They were finally leaving her room. She lay back down, thinking she could finally get some rest, when the door burst open and Dang Ji's voice boomed. "Miss, you're awake." Yin felt like she wanted to die. Even the dead would have been roused by that racket. Yun sat up, her voice thick with annoyance. She'd been awake for a while, she said. How could she not be, with all that noise? Yun mentioned the rain, and Dang Ji, hitching up her skirts, climbed onto the bed with her dirty shoes, demanding Yun look at her leg, claiming her shins were raw from the beating. Dang Ji's voice was deafening as she demanded to know why Yun had gone to the central hall. It was all Yun's fault, she accused, that she had been punished. Yun seemed to finally snap. Why was it her fault? It was because Dang Ji was lazy, she retorted. Dang Ji was momentarily speechless. She had carefully observed how Yun was disregarded within the family. Why was she daring to talk back now? Yun frowned. How could Dang Ji say such a thing? How disappointed the third young master would be if he knew how cruel Yun was being. Oh, her head ached. Yun had no time for this. She told Dang Ji to refill her tea and then rest. Dang Ji scoffed, saying it figured. Yun was a low-born thing who couldn't do anything without her. She asked if Yun wasn't old enough to pour her own tea. It would be difficult for her if Yun continued to be so immature. Yun frowned, but the scene was interrupted. Another maid rushed in. "Mississippi, Mississippi," she cried. Steward Gao had arrived, astonishingly, with a mountain of gifts. Antiques, vases, books, furniture, the lot. The gifts were presented to Yun and her father, who stared at the display, speechless. Steward Gao, the Bai family's treasurer, informed Yun that these were gifts from the patriarch. He usually sent such gifts to family members after a trip. The servants were stunned, whispering amongst themselves. The patriarch, they had thought he was merely allowing her to stay. Yun wondered if this was her grandfather's declaration. Though she was exiled here, she was still to be treated as a direct descendant. She hadn't expected him to go this far. Steward Gao presented a white fur, telling Yun it was of the finest quality. He suggested they not alter it too much, but instead fashion it into a scarf. Ian's father asked Chief Go to relay to his own father his apologies for his filial impiety and his deep gratitude for the kindness, but that he could only accept his father's goodwill. Ian frowned as her father continued, explaining that accepting such a precious item felt burdensome for both Ian and himself. Ian screamed internally, "Father, how can you refuse this? This is grandfather's way of making amends." Chief Go chuckled, telling them not to worry, as he had already delivered gifts to others before arriving. Why couldn't Miss Ian receive more than the rest? Not only that, but Chief Go attempted to entice them further, explaining that these were medicinal herbs, difficult to acquire even with a hefty sum. This was 50-year-old fleeceflower root. This was ginseng, and there were many other herbs that aided in restoring vitality. Ian's father seemed to waver, his resolve finally crumbling under the persuasive words. Ian watched her father, thinking, really, Dad? Her father gratefully accepted the gifts and the medicinal herbs. Chief Go beamed, clearly understanding Ian's father well. Ian's father apologized, admitting that Chief Go indeed knew him too well. Chief Go replied that he had watched Ikon grow up. Of course he understood. Then, mentioning he almost forgot something, he produced a familiar box. Ian's lips twitched. No way. Chief Go presented the box. It contained the 1,000-year golden elixir sent by the clan, with the patriarch's message that they could dispose of it as they saw fit. This left both Ian and her father stunned. Ian wondered if her grandfather, by ascending the golden elixir, was testing her. Her father remained silent. She had assumed her father would urge her to consume it immediately, but surprisingly, he didn't. Her ears caught a commotion, and she glanced towards the doorway, witnessing two maidservants struggling over an item. Dang Ji finally wrested it from the other maid's grasp. Ian was speechless. Dang Ji questioned the other maid. "What's wrong? Am I not allowed to look?" She then turned to Ian. "It's all right, isn't it?" Ian remembered Dang Ji's greed in her past life. She would constantly complain to Ian about how much their father disliked her, then gradually pilfer the gifts he gave Ian. She would also spread rumors that Ian disliked the gifts and threw them away. Before Ian could fully recall the past, Dang Ji snatched the jade pendant. Gazing at the pendant with avarice, she praised its beauty. The other maid protested, saying it wasn't allowed. Dang Ji turned to Ian, pleading, "Miss, please give me this jade pendant. Ian has so many. Surely you can give me one." And she added, since she had been punished because of Ian should give her the pendant as compensation. Ian smiled, thinking that even after returning to the past, Dang Ji remained the same. She replied, "Wait a moment." But Dang Ji, assuming this was agreement, didn't listen or even attempt to hear what Ian was about to say. Dang Ji excitedly declared the pendant hers. Ian thought about how her grandfather had gone to such lengths, yet nothing had changed. Suddenly, Ian's father called out to her excitedly. The medicinal herbs her father had sent were indeed superior. They should use them to prepare medicine for her, shouldn't they? Ian replied, of course. He didn't need to ask her permission to use them. Her father said that since she had received them, she should decide. Ian said there was no need for such formality between them. "But father," Ian began, Dang Ji asked if she could have the jade pendant. "Can I give it to Dang Ji?" she asked, gesturing toward the maid. "What?" Her father looked shocked. Dang Ji thought, "Oh no." Ian replied innocently. "Dang Ji said she wanted it as compensation for being punished because of me. But these are all gifts from grandfather, right? I don't think I can just give them away." Her father sternly demanded to know what this meant, Dang Ji having been punished because of Ian. Dang Ji hastily deflected the blame onto Ian, saying, "What are you talking about? She never said such a thing. When did she ever say that?" Ian, with an innocent and sweet expression, replied, "You did say it. You said that because I have many, you could have one, and that you were being punished because of me since this morning." Dang Ji cried out in exasperation, a frantic air filling the room. Ian's father ordered the maid to lower her voice, glaring at her. He stated, "Though Ian is young, she is the master whom Dang Ji serves. How dare you raise your voice at her?" Dang Ji knelt, admitting her wrongdoing, claiming she had committed a grave offense. Ian's father continued to glare at the maid, his brow furrowed in anger. Dang Ji trembled, fearing the repercussions, while Ian's father's expression remained unchanged. Tears welled in Dang Ji's eyes, uncertain of her fate, her trembling continuing. She clenched her fists and finally, with a sigh, decided on the punishment. He declared his judgment. She had behaved with such impudence. He could not overlook it. She was to kneel there until sunset. He then directed another maid to keep watch over Dang Ji and ensure she properly received her punishment. The other maid accepted the command. Ian's father scooped Ian up in his arms and stormed off, slamming the door behind him, leaving the servants trembling in their wake. He carried his grim expression all the way to his own quarters. She sat on the bed, watching her father pace back and forth, wondering what he would ask. Finally, he spoke. "Does her maid usually behave this way?" Then he retracted the question, telling her to forget about it. Placing his hand on her shoulder, he told her directly that she needn't feel guilty about the incident. The maid was being punished for neglecting her duties. Did she understand? With a guilt-ridden expression, she nodded her understanding. Her father said that to prevent such things from happening again, she could see the guilt on his face. It was the first time she had ever seen him like this. She finally understood that her father was too busy keeping her alive to pay attention to what was going on around them. She thought how clumsy they both were, father and daughter. It made her all the more determined to have a happy life with her father this time around. "Young master," a servant interrupted them. It was Yandu, her father's servant. He reported through the door that he had organized all the gifts sent by the family and inquired where they should be placed. Her father told the servant to put the medicinal herbs in his quarters and the rest in Ian's. Then he retracted his words and turned to Ian, saying, no matter how he thought about it, he was worried. She waited for him to continue, but he just looked at her hesitantly, struggling internally with how to phrase his next words. Anxious, she wondered what was it? What was he going to say? Why was he hesitating so much? Finally, he asked, would she want to move into his quarters? What? She asked, a little flustered. He replied that if she wanted to, he wasn't forcing her. He explained that his quarters were large, and a room could be prepared for her immediately. Usually, children stayed with their parents until they were 10, though their current quarters were close. Although they lived in separate buildings, they weren't far from each other. Typically, a girl her age would live with her parents. He remembered when she first arrived, she seemed awkward around him, which is why she requested to live elsewhere. Ian stood at the doorway, speechless as she watched her young mistress. It was a shock, as this was the first time she'd seen her father speak so much. He believed that, no matter how they looked at it, it was best they lived together. The closer they were, the better he could care for her, especially given her delicate health. Good heavens, Ian thought. He still going. At this rate, father will never stop talking. Her father continued, explaining that there were many advantages to this arrangement, even if she felt uncomfortable around him. All right, Ian blurted out. Her father paused, making sure he'd heard correctly. You agree? He asked. Yes, she replied. She liked the idea. A brilliant smile erupted on his face as he scooped her up in his arms, excitedly thanking her for agreeing. He wore the happiest smile as he held her, while she remained uncertain. Her father, considered a powerful master in Milan, was so anxious when asking for his daughter's opinion. Regardless, a warmth bloomed in her chest. Beaming at her words, her father instructed the servants to prepare her room. His warm embrace and radiant happiness made her feel incredibly happy. She felt like she could smile all day. At another residence, angry complaints could be heard. This is absurd, she thought. It hasn't been long since mother handed out punishments, and he's at it again. Murmurs began, whispers that the lady's punishments weren't enough, that Lord Bai had lashed out at another servant. Aaron angrily complained that Lord E was ruining her mother's reputation. Her mother, Lady Sun Danhu of the Bai clan, told her not to be so impulsive. He hadn't beaten or dismissed the servant, only made a disrespectful servant kneel. It would be foolish for her to get involved. Dissatisfied with her mother's decision, Aaron asked if she was just going to let him continue. She told her mother that the white furs had already been given to their family, a clear sign that father was paying attention to Ian. At this rate, what if Lordy became the head of the family? Aaron's mother told her to bring the poi and ACH children. You mean? Aaron confirmed. It hadn't been long since they visited their husband's family. There was no other choice. Aaron's reputation needed to be protected in front of the children, her mother replied. And if those children were here, the head of the family would forget about that cripple who couldn't even learn martial arts. Please leave a comment of 3 or more words for part 2. Please support this channel by subscribing. Subscribe for more videos and faster updates. Ian sat in her father's lap, telling the crabs to eat more. Since moving into her father's residence, she seemed to relish the time spent with him. She was now living a life of pampered ease. Protected every day by her dependable father, she felt a little embarrassed. It was something she never would have dreamed of in her past life. What's wrong? He asked, noticing her clinging to him. Are you cold? No, she replied, her face impassive. I'm just happy. Her father didn't know how to react to his daughter's expression of happiness. Ian seemed to want to tease him. In her past life, seeing that expression would have filled her with dread. But now she knew what it meant. Her father was the type to become flustered when embarrassed. She giggled happily as her impassive father blushed. While on a walk, they heard someone shout, "How have you all been defeated? Is this the strength of the mighty Bai clan? Next, who will step forward?" The voice demanded. Ian and her father headed towards the source of the commotion, curious to see what the disturbance was. Seems like there's quite a stir at the training grounds, Ian's father remarked. As they approached the training grounds, the clamor grew louder. What's going on? Why isn't anyone stepping forward? Doesn't anyone recognize that voice? In the training hall, 2 boys, identical in appearance, were taunting the others. One boy declared arrogantly, "You cowards," while the other pointed a finger. Ian recognized them as the twins, Beckripio and Soak. A boy, gesturing towards himself and the boy beside him, asked the twins if they were referring to them. The boy beside him looked nervous. Ian gasped inwardly. Why were they here now? Beckriyurin's twin sons, and also her cousins, Soak and Beckripio. Their different surnames were due to an agreement Beckriyurin made with her husband when they married. She recalled her aunt in her red wedding dress. The story went that when they had children, one child would take the father's surname and the other the mother's, to be raised by the Beckri family. It was a brilliant opportunity, she'd thought, to make the children heirs to both families. Ian wondered if it was because of this agreement that Yurin had given birth to twins, perfectly positioned to be registered to each family. She watched the twins nervously, her unease noticed by her father. One twin said, "Don't go easy on them." The other urged the other boys to bring it on. Ian found this even stranger. Why were the twins here now? Weren't they supposed to be with the other family? She watched as one twin lunged at his opponent. The opponent seemed nervous and unsettled by the twins' attack. Seeing the opening, the twins smirked. Ian and her father watched the fight, which quickly ended with the twin boys victorious. I lost. The opponent conceded defeat. Wow, Cheers for the young masters. The onlookers exclaimed in admiration. Ian asked her father what he thought of their skills. He sighed, replying, "Their technique is decent, but their foundation is weak, their inner strength unstable. There's little to be gained from such a match." But he'd noticed her recognition of the children. He asked how she knew these children were her cousins. She'd never met Poi and Ak before, right? Oops, almost slipped up. She explained that who else, besides someone her age, would dare challenge disciples of the powerful Beck-Ri family. And seeing two children who looked exactly alike, she knew they were Beck-Ripio older brother, and so AK older brother. He nodded, saying her observation was keen. Indeed, they were her twin cousins. His sister had brought them from their father's house a few days ago. Good, she thought the little white lie worked. Weren't they supposed to be brought back from the Soth family? She asked. Her father didn't know. One of the twins, arrogant, asked why these disciples were so boring, as if no one could defeat his twin brother. The other twin haughtily replied that he knew how boring it was. Ian remembered being tormented terribly by these two in her past life. She had to be careful not to cross paths with them. It was as if the wounds from their beatings in her past life still ached faintly. She frowned at the thought. From that day on, she decided to take fewer walks outside. Ian's father asked what that was. Sighing, Ian, remembering the twins and how she was staying inside to avoid them, showed her work to her father, replying, "It's embroidery." She'd been practicing because she was bored. "I see, are those clouds?" He asked. "They're pear blossoms," she replied. They both fell into an awkward silence. Her father cleared his throat, suggesting that since she was bored, she should learn to write. Good. He'd changed the subject, she thought. Her father declared that he would be her teacher. He would teach her. Ian asked if he would teach. Of course. Why didn't I think of this sooner? Her father said excitedly. He asked how much she had learned so far. She was speechless, shocked. How could she remember characters she'd learned a decade ago? I haven't been able to see the writing teacher a few times before, she replied, nervous and slightly ashamed. But her father didn't seem angry. He still wore the same excited smile as he replied, "It's all right. She can learn from the beginning." He patted her little head, telling her there was plenty of time. She had a set of brushes and ink. Her father asked her to write down the characters she remembered. She grumbled, it's so hard. He gently encouraged her. It's always like this at first. At first, Ian seemed incredibly focused, which her father found amusing. He stifled his laughter, telling himself over and over not to laugh. She could sense her father's amusement from behind her and thought, "Father, just laugh already." She contemplated what to write. Her father, still covering his mouth, peeked at what she was writing and asked in surprise, "Isn't this my name?" Ian exclaimed excitedly, "Yes, it is," silently praising him. "Wow. Father, well done. How had he read this?" Her father's love. Before she could finish her thought, she saw tears streaming down his face. He said, despite not being able to stay by her side, she still remembered her father's name. He was so moved he couldn't speak. She thought, surprised, he's crying. "Wait, father, have you always been this sentimental?" Ian panicked. What to do? In both her lives, she'd never comforted him. Patting his head with her small hand, she asked, "Father, are you crying already? I'll write it for you many, many times, and I'll write even better things, okay?" She consoled him. He accepted her comfort, pulling her into a hug, which she returned heartily. Then her father told her she couldn't stand on the chair. He lifted her down, saying it was safer on the floor. She said okay. She wasn't sure if he was being overprotective or just overly righteous. A servant inquired, "Third young master, is the third young master in?" Ian and her father turned towards the servant. The servant said, "The patriarch invited him to the guardian hall for dinner." The patriarch also requested the young Mrs. Presence, along with the other children. Seeing the third young master's state, she realized she might have overdone it. She hadn't meant to cause this. So Ian's father asked the servant, "Looking at me, what's wrong?" The servant panicked. The servant apologized, saying they were just momentarily distracted. Meanwhile, internally, the servant was screaming. He cried. The third young master cried, "Third young master! Third young master!" Ian's face twitched. She thought she knew what the servant was thinking. She understood, yes. But why would grandfather invite her? She pondered this in the dining hall. The first to arrive were Iarun and her twin sons, Poi and AK. Next came Ekong and Ian. Ian felt the atmosphere was awkward. Then grandfather's right-hand man, Doc, came to ask the third young master to step outside for a moment, saying it would only be a short while. The third young master said her father would be back soon. The right-hand man insisted it would only take a brief moment. Iarun bit her lip, annoyed. Fine. The third young master stood, observing his sister. She crossed her arms, ignoring him. Ian, her father called, telling her not to wander off, to sit quietly, and to be sure to tell him if anything happened. Her aunt scoffed. Ian smiled and told him not to worry about her, to go and take care of his business. She waved her father off. As soon as her father was out of sight, she could already feel the dark energy emanating from behind her. The twins approached, malicious intent hidden in their eyes. Ian tried to ignore the energy radiating from behind her. One of the twins said, "Hey, I heard your waist because your dantian is broken, so you can't cultivate martial arts." The other circled around to her other side, asking simultaneously, "Is it true?" The place where she first met Locke and Beck Ripio after her rebirth had changed, but the first words these two spoke remained the same. One of the twins, Beck Ripio or Soak, answered Ian's question, "Who said that?" Before he could finish, the other twin punched him from behind, silencing him. He realized he'd almost been tricked by her. The twin who'd thrown the punch then asked Ian what she finds out. Ian was considering her response when the same twin added, "It's true, isn't it? You're just trash." Ian replied, "Then she can tell her father." Her answer stunned the twins. Their aunt, Run, snapped her fan shut, slamming it on the table. Pointing the folded fan at Ian, she yelled, "You truly are displaying the vulgarity of being raised in the streets." Feigning a foolish innocence, she continued, "I'm sorry," but her father told her to tell him everything. She scolded, "Does Ian think her father will be home for long?" "I don't know," Ian answered. Run smiled sweetly, like a clueless child, and said, "I'll have to ask father how long he'll be home." This statement made Run's eye twitch, a vein throbbing in her forehead. She roared, "You're acting so arrogant because your father backs you up." Someone called out, "Run, what are you doing? You're so loud they can hear you outside." It was Bakery Imek, Run's brother and Becky Myong's father, who had entered. Run and the twins hurriedly greeted their elder brother. She asked him why he was so late. Her uncle immediately began to reprimand Ian. Who talks back to their aunt like that? She knew he would scold her as soon as he arrived. Myong told his father not to be too harsh on Ian, saying she was still young. Her cousin greeted her, saying it was the first time he'd seen Ian since that day, and asked if she was doing well. To keep the peace, she answered honestly yes. Myong remarked that it felt like their first meeting. Despite living in the same house, the two had never properly greeted each other. He introduced his sister, Bekri Riri, telling her, "Over there is your cousin, Bekri Ian, who's the same age as you." His sister hid behind him, blatantly ignoring Ian. Myong chuckled, explaining that his sister, Riri, was usually shy around strangers. The twins ran over to Riri, trying to coax her out. Ian sat in her chair, watching the siblings laugh together like a family. Alone, she wondered, when will father return? The patriarch's dining room was filled with a feast of delicious food. Ian and her father sat on one side of the table, everyone else on the other. It seemed no one wanted anything to do with them. The patriarch sat at the head of the table. Ian's mouth watered at the sight of the various dishes. Everything looked so delicious. Her father kept piling food on her plate, urging her to eat it all because it looked so good. She savored every morsel he placed before her. Run and Imek watched the pair. They seemed completely oblivious to everyone else at the table. The patriarch asked Imek, "How are Myung's writing lessons coming along?" Distracted by the father and daughter, he hadn't heard the question and asked, "I'm sorry." The patriarch repeated his inquiry about Myung's writing lessons. He replied, "Ever since the teacher at the Chonghwan Academy retired, he's been having a writing tutor come to the house." Ian thought, wow, he's good at thinking on his feet. The patriarch then asked, "What about Riri and the twins?" Imek answered, "The same for them." Run chimed in that it was the same for her children as well. Ian wondered, why is father asking when he clearly already knows this? Ian was watching them when she suddenly heard her name. What? Did this question include her too? The patriarch asked, surprised. "You teach Ian yourself?" "Yes," Ikong replied. The patriarch cleared his throat and said, "Master Qi, a renowned scholar, had followed a physician here during the Song dynasty." Ian thought that's why he asked. At first, no one knew, but Master Qi was a truly remarkable individual. To enjoy his later years in peace, he came here to teach, hoping to avoid the entanglements of political power struggles. But with his reputation, students from all over the country soon flocked to him, pouring into the school he'd opened for his own amusement. loved. Because it allowed future civil officials to interact with one another, this place became a hub for building invaluable connections. The patriarch said he'd heard that Master Key would be opening a school here, and he thought it best to send the children there in the future. What did everyone think? In her past life, even Master Key hadn't accepted many students. Worse, she'd never been given such an opportunity back then. This was a huge chance for her. The twins spoke in unison, 4 hours of lessons. Grandfather, we don't even have enough time to practice our swordsmanship. It's such a waste of time. Grandfather replied, it's only 4 hours at first. Because Master Key understands the circumstances of martial arts families, he'll gradually reduce the lesson time based on their progress. For martial arts families, martial arts are paramount. But if you're from a prestigious lineage like the powerful Beckery family, then martial arts are a given, and you must also master the 6 arts to a certain degree. Ian thought, maybe Grandfather just wants them to learn the basics. He probably doesn't want them to seem like uncultured brutes who only know how to swing a sword. Grandfather asked, even if you study at school for 4 hours, don't you still have 20 hours left for training? That's plenty of time, and you're not training all day long, are you? One twin said, of course we train all day. The other twin chimed in, yeah, we don't put down our swords for a second. Ian couldn't believe they were telling such blatant lies. Iorun attempted to explain on her son's behalf. Father, you don't know how hard Beck and Solok train. They've already reached the 3rd level of Divine Body Martial Arts. Divine Body Martial Arts was a technique that could only be mastered by those with the blood of the Beckery family. Amit congratulated them. Beck and Solok are close to the 3rd level. That's incredible. Iorun, you must be so proud to have such outstanding sons. The twins preened, basking in the praise. Ian understood that, as one progressed, reaching the next level became increasingly difficult. Even if you swung your sword the same way, the 1st level was like cutting a twig, the 2nd level like felling a tree, and the 5th level like slicing through stone. Amik asked, Father, isn't that remarkable? For reference, Grandfather, a 10th level master who surpassed the 9th level, known as the Wailing Wall, was the one who brought the now powerful Becker family to its peak. And Ian's father is currently at the 8th level, on the verge of breaking through to the 9th, a genius who has broken all the records Grandfather set in his youth. Iorun said confidently, if Beck and Solok break through to the 3rd level at the age of 7, they'll break Ekong's record for being the youngest. Ian's face twitched, even though that dream had gone unfulfilled in her past life. Grandfather said, since Beck and Solok are too busy to attend school, what are Myaung's thoughts on schooling? Myaung replied, it's a great opportunity to be taught by such a distinguished individual. I want to attend school, but I'm worried that while Beck and Solok are so focused on martial arts, shouldn't I also be concentrating on martial arts if I have the luxury of rest? By this point, Grandfather's patience was wearing thin. Riri, what about you? Riri, busy eating, asked in confusion what? Grandfather was about to lose his temper. About school. Do you want to go or not? Imik, Riri's father, pleaded fearfully for Riri to say the right thing, at least this once. Of course. Looking confused, they asked what Grandpa was about to lose his temper over. Do you want to go to Yemu or not? Riri's father pleaded anxiously, hoping she would finally say the right thing for once. She hadn't received any notice. Why do we have to go there? She asked, can't Grandfather just have the teacher come to the house? Ian inwardly screamed. This was unbelievable. Was this really the attitude of a young lady from the powerful Beckery family? Seeing his father losing control, Imik interrupted his tirade against his daughter. Riri, he said, what are you talking about? Did you even listen to what Grandfather said? Tears welled in Beckery Riri's eyes. Why are you angry, Father? She asked. Grandfather slammed his hand on the table. Nobody is going. He roared. Ian was shocked. Why? She wanted to go. She wanted to attend school. Ian had thought that this time she would finally have a good life, a proper education. But was this as far as she could go in this life? Ian silently prayed. As Grandfather continued his reprimand, Ekong spoke up. Father, he said, what is it you want? Her father continued to rage. Ekong calmly replied, you haven't asked, Ian. Ekong's words stunned all the adults in the room, including Ian herself. It was absurd for Ekong to say such a thing in this situation. Iorun scoffed. Can't you see Father is angry? And what would Ian know? She's the same age as Riri. There was no reason to ask her. Ian, nervous, spoke up. Who is actually angry? She asked. It seems more like Anne is angry. But then she saw Grandfather glaring at her. Perhaps grandfather was even angrier. His patience with the other children, not her, was wearing thin. He addressed Ian directly. "Well, Ian," he asked, "what do you think? Do you want to go to school?" No need to lie. Ian sighed inwardly. Why did things always become so chaotic when it was her turn? Her angry aunt was arguing. The twins were crying. Grandfather was tired and furious. "Don't you understand why you're angry?" Ian asked her grandfather. Iarun scoffed inwardly. What could a foolish little girl like her possibly know? At most, she would complain about not wanting to go. "It's not that Brother Beck and So Locke don't want to go," Ian said. "It's that they can't go, right?" This surprised grandfather. "What do you mean they can't go?" he asked. Ian replied innocently, "Aren't they supposed to be going into secluded cultivation training?" Iarun abruptly stood up and roared, "What are you talking about?" Secluded cultivation training is a ruthless training method where one is confined alone in a cave, focused solely on training. It lasts for at least a month, sometimes years. During that time, there's no support, and worse, the only thing to eat is a tasteless preserved food called bigapil. Could the twins even handle secluded cultivation training? Ian thought gleefully. Aloud, she said, "But Aunt, I heard grandfather did secluded cultivation training when he reached the 3rd level." "I heard father did too," Ian continued. "Aren't Beck and So Locke supposed to do the same?" she asked with feigned innocence. "I'm so envious of you brothers. Congratulations in advance on almost reaching the 3rd level." Ian's congratulations were laced with hidden meaning. Both twins cried out, "Hey, you don't even have a dantee on." Before they could finish, their father shot them a menacing look. They immediately shut their mouths in fear. Iarun asked, "What secluded cultivation training are you talking about? Your father never did that." "Really?" Ian questioned, surprisingly, while her father was still glaring at the boys, conveying the message, "I'm watching you." He patted her head. "She's right," he said. "He did undergo secluded cultivation training, but he had to come out within 2 days because his mother fell ill." "Oh, grandmother was sick?" Ian asked. "Yes," her father replied. Grandfather seemed to be considering something. "I didn't know that," Ian responded. Iarun interjected, "Right? You're mistaken." Apologized to grandfather. Grandfather cut Iarun off. "No," he said cheerfully. "Ian is right. Now is not the time for school. Go and prepare for Beck and So Locke's secluded cultivation training." Grandfather interrupted Iran and said with a smile, "No, Iran is right. This isn't the time for school. Go ahead and get ready for your pure and ox isolation training." As the twins, Beck and So Locke, huddled together in fright, their mother, Iarun, cried out, "Father, how can they possibly undergo secluded cultivation training? We can't just have them living off Vigu pills during their growth spurt." Recently, their grandfather had retorted that he, too, had undergone secluded cultivation at their age. As a mother, a child's future should be her priority. Iarun found herself unable to refute her father's words. Reaching a higher realm at a young age was invaluable, and there was no easy path to achieving such a goal. Though it may be arduous now, Beck, it's all an investment for the future. Iarun herself had only just broken through to the 3rd level at the age of 12, and beside her then was Ian's father. He had been highly regarded for his talent. After some contemplation, she told the twins that, as their mother, she didn't think secluded cultivation was such a bad idea. Before she could finish her sentence, the twins eagerly told their grandfather they wanted to go to Master Key School. They really wanted to go to school. Good heavens, Ian couldn't believe these people. Grandfather had an all-or-nothing personality. If everyone agreed, he'd send them all. Otherwise, none would go. Ian sighed, feeling she'd done a decent job of avoiding the topic her father had brought up. He added some more food to her plate, encouraging her to try it. She cheerfully agreed, saying it would be a shame not to enjoy the delicious dishes while she was there. She put the food in her mouth and was momentarily stunned. Ian's father asked her if it was good, and she enthusiastically nodded, declaring it delicious. She picked up a piece for her father to try, saying it was very tasty. He replied that he'd already had plenty. Grandfather felt like a third wheel, the father and daughter, perfectly in sync, expressing their affection for each other, while the other side of the table was pure chaos. Iarun was lecturing the twins, and Riri wouldn't stop crying no matter what Imik said. Then, on the other side of the table, the harmonious side, Ian asked her father what the dish was made of, and he admitted he didn't know. She thought it might be watercress. Were they cooked with saltwater fish? Her father replied that she could ask the chef if she was curious. Grandfather, observing this scene, became thoroughly displeased and bellowed, "Ikong, are you starving her? She's still skin and bones." Ian's father looked bewildered, while Ian, spitting the food out of her mouth, wondered what had gotten into her grandfather this time. Ian's father replied that it seemed Ian was enjoying today's dishes. Ian, trying to swallow the food, wondered why her grandfather had to fly off the handle. Yes, grandfather, every dish is delicious. Ian quickly echoed her father's sentiment, hoping to appease her grandfather's anger. She told him he should try some too. Humph, bring it here. I'll see just how delicious it is, grandfather grumbled. Really? Ian looked to her father for approval. After he nodded, she carried a plate of food over to her grandfather. I only picked the ones I thought were the best. If you don't mind, please try some, she said innocently. Grandfather was touched, but unsure how to express it. Ahem, I only meant to try the meat patties, but you've prepared a whole plate. He took the plate from Ian. Ian froze, uncertain if she had overstepped. As he ate, grandfather commented, "What's so good about this? It's bland." But he ate quickly, surprising Ian. She stood there precariously, holding the empty plate. Grandfather told her to go back at once. Ian, confused, started to return to her seat, but grandfather clarified, not to her seat, but back to her quarters. Ian's father said it was time for them to leave. Inwardly, Ian screamed, "But I haven't finished eating." As her father led her away from the dining hall, she continued to clamor for more food. A pile of school supplies was delivered to Ian. The maidservant told her to inform her father if anything was missing. That pile of school supplies. Ian gazed at the glittering pile of treasures. Her grandfather's stark, black and white personality reflected in her meticulous examination of each item. She had guessed her grandfather would send them to school, but she hadn't anticipated this level of extravagance. Looking at the school supplies, Ikong smiled. His father had clearly put a great deal of thought into this. Grandfather was convinced that even a child who could barely write, and to have the teachers look after Ian's health as well. She was already grateful for the opportunity to attend school. She wanted to give her grandfather something in return, but what? She had tried embroidery, but her skills with a needle and thread were another matter entirely. Looking at the finished product, she couldn't tell if it was a flower, a butterfly, or a rabbit. She had meant to embroider her grandfather's name. It had, however, transformed into something resembling a cursed handkerchief. She was glad she hadn't continued, but it wasn't too bad, was it? After a moment of doubt, she reassured herself. It was good. It was. The real problem was how to give it to him. Rather than entrusting it to a servant, she'd sooner believe a rabbit would hop out of the handkerchief itself. That didn't mean she wanted to face her grandfather directly. While he had been kind to her recently, it didn't mean he had fully accepted her into the family. Hello? Ian greeted the guard at the door. The guard looked bewildered. She explained that she had left something behind in the White Protection Hall last time and asked if she could go in and retrieve it. If she couldn't ask for help and couldn't give it to him herself, she reasoned she could just secretly leave it in his room. The guard said he would take her inside. Normally, he would have ignored Ian, making her wait for the patriarch's return. But recently, due to a certain child's remarkable achievements, the Beckery family's dynamics had become peculiar. While Ian had initially been overlooked, not considered true Beckery blood, the recent whispers about her had given the guard pause. He escorted Ian inside, unsure when the patriarch, who had left that morning, would return. He couldn't bring himself to simply turn her away. They arrived at the door, and Ian asked the guard if she could look for the item herself. It was a secret item, she explained, a charming blush rising on her cheeks. The guard chuckled. What big secrets could such a small child have? He found her endearing. He told her he would wait outside and to come out quickly once she found it. Ian readily agreed. She was momentarily distracted by the room's splendor and tidiness, but reminded herself this wasn't the time for sightseeing. She looked around for a suitable place to leave the handkerchief. Somewhere the guards outside wouldn't see, but the cleaning servants would easily find. There, her eyes landed on the bed. The blankets were regularly aired in the sun, so it would be discovered quickly. Good, good, she muttered happily, lifting the covers and placing her gift beneath. What's good? A voice boomed from behind her. Ian jumped. Grandfather. Startled, Ian instinctively whirled around, losing her balance. She stumbled backward towards the edge of the bed, but her grandfather caught her just in time. Why so surprised? He exclaimed, his voice laced with concern. She had given him a fright. I thought you were a ghost, she stammered. He retorted, did he need to announce his presence in his own quarters? She, on the other hand, had snuck into his room like a thief. Realizing her mistake, she bowed in apology. Her action caught him off guard. He cleared his throat. He asked her if she had found what she was looking for, his eyes falling on the bundle in her hands. What's that? He inquired. Caught red-handed, Ian had little choice but to present the handkerchief to her grandfather. It's for you, she murmured, offering it to him. He leaned down, peering at the offering. For me, he questioned. She nodded in confirmation. Ikon carefully unfolded the accompanying note. Ian stood rigidly, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach as he examined the gift and the handwritten message. She'd been diligently practicing her writing, hoping he could decipher her script. Did you embroider this yourself? He asked, his gaze fixed on the handkerchief. Yes, she replied quickly. You didn't have a servant do it. He probed further. If that were the quality of the servant's work, Ian thought, they'd have been dismissed long ago. I made it myself, she reiterated. See, it's a rabbit. She pointed to the design, then hesitated, her voice trailing off. Wait, it's not a rabbit. She'd meant to say flowers and butterflies, but the word rabbit had become an unfortunate habit, slipping out instinctively. Ikon waited expectantly for her to finish. A rabbit. Rabbits are cute, she mumbled, her voice lacking conviction. No, wait. Rabbit or flowers and butterflies. It's for you, grandfather. So, grandfather, I'll be going now, she attempted, eager to escape. He stopped her with a gesture. She knew she wasn't getting away. Resigned, Ian sat before him, longing for the familiarity of her own room. Ian, he began. Yes, grandfather, she responded dutifully. Do you think Pew and Ock will break through to the 3rd level this year? He asked, his tone serious. What was the meaning behind this sudden question? Had he discovered her involvement? How would I know? She replied, feigning ignorance. After all, wasn't I the one who suggested the secluded cultivation training, as if I were expecting something? That's because, Ian began, trying to deflect the question. He cut her off. No, Ikon stated firmly. You knew from the beginning, from observing them for so long. You knew Pew and Ock couldn't break through to the 3rd level. He knew she was a perceptive child. She had suggested the secluded training to help him, hadn't she? Ian realized her deception had been uncovered. Lying now would only anger him further. Yes, you're right, she admitted. I just thought you wanted to send them away to study. Would she be considered disrespectful, insulting the direct descendants? Would they hate her for it? Don't meddle in things that don't concern you from now on, Ikon commanded. Yes, she replied, her voice small. I apologize. Sensing she hadn't grasped the full implications of her actions, he continued. How do you think Pew and Ock will see you now, after this interference? They would think she had deliberately set them up. What would they do to her in the future? Frail and unable to cultivate, she was vulnerable. What do you think will happen? He pressed. You have no mother here, no grandmother to protect you. Even if your father pays attention, he can't constantly intervene in squabbles between children. Your father won't always be home to shield you. Ikon continued, his voice softening slightly. And in matters like these, he won't necessarily take your side. Ian finally understood. This was his way of showing concern. Emboldened, she decided to push a little further. But grandfather, she ventured, what if they start trouble with me, even if I don't want it? He looked at her, surprised. What are you talking about? Pew and Ock call me useless. Trash that can't even cultivate, she confessed. Ikon's eyes widened. They said that. Yes, she affirmed. The day you came, when father was briefly away. He had finally heard the admission he'd been waiting for. How dare they use such vulgar language? He roared, his anger erupting. How does Eat the Run raise her children? He slammed his fist on the table. And you just let it go. You didn't tell your father. Yes, she answered quietly, her voice laced with disappointment. I thought it was just a childish argument. Ikong stared at her, stunned, shocked. He seems to have learned a life lesson. Ian declared, Grandfather, if I don't fight him after hearing this, and if my health improves later, will I still be worthy of wielding a sword? I want to be able to hold my head high. Ikong saw the shadow of his son, Igong, in Ian, that unwavering confidence in the face of adversity. She knew this was the best attitude for a warrior. Her words might sound empty now, but they truly reflected her innermost thoughts. Stars twinkled in the night sky as Ikong was escorted by 2 maidservants. One maidservant held a lamp, lighting the way. Master, 3rd young master has arrived. Let him in, the master commanded. Igong, Ian's father, was surprised to see her asleep on the master's bed. Ikong told him not to be surprised. She came to me first. Ian, he asked, incredulous. Are you suggesting I forced her here? No, it's just, I don't understand why Ian would come to see you, father, Igong replied. Ikong said proudly, she's much stronger than her father. What? Igong was bewildered. Ikong pulled a handkerchief from his sleeve. Isn't this Ian's handiwork? Igong asked. Indeed, Ikong replied, beaming. She is quite the deft hand. He began to praise her. I don't even know what to say. It's the first time I've seen someone embroider a rabbit for a warrior. Well, There's nothing to be done about that. Excuse me, shouldn't it be a butterfly? Gong disagreed. His father retorted, what are you talking about? Look, it's clearly a rabbit, isn't it? Gong conceded, you're right. She intended to leave it here secretly as a token of gratitude for sending her to school. Although we sent 5 grandchildren, only she truly appreciates it. Annoyed by Gong's personality, Gong explained that this was why they should eat together. His old age had diminished his appetite, but seeing her eat made him want to eat as well. Gong replied complacently that he was glad to hear it. His father expected more from him. Is that all? Gong asked. What? Gong didn't understand his father's meaning. Such an exasperating fellow. If it were another child, like Yurun, they would be begging him to see how excellent their child was. If it were Imuk, they would be showing off their child's abilities, boasting to him. They would find any way to flaunt their child to gain his attention. But looking at his obtuse son, he concluded that it wasn't Gong who had prompted Ian to make this. It was Ian's own initiative. Pleased by her sincerity, he instructed Gong to ensure she continued her embroidery. Gong replied that she was a child meant to wield a sword. Later, Gong asked Ian something. Do you know about your mother? Ian was drowsy during the meal. She found it difficult to stay awake in her child's body. Half asleep, she answered that she didn't know. He, her grandfather, said nothing. Growing sleepier, Ian chuckled. Am I a fool? How could I not know that my mother abandoned me? She rubbed her eyes, thinking she couldn't go on like this, her head tipping forward towards her plate. But Gong's large hand caught her face just in time, preventing her from hitting the dish. Gong picked Ian up, bidding his father good night. Since this is the path you've chosen, I hope you won't regret it, Gong murmured, watching as Gong carried the sleepy Ian away. A few days later, Ian, dressed warmly and neatly, could hardly believe she was starting school. Ian scratched her cheek guiltily. It was a shame her health had only improved enough to attend the first class. She should have been able to sit in on the lesson, but she remembered her father and grandfather's warnings not to push herself too hard and to focus on her recovery. On the first day, she could only manage to attend the introductions. As she walked, she heard the shouts of children. Glancing over, she saw the twins and a few other boys. One of the twins poked a stick at a tree. Amidst, the twin called out. Ian had assumed they were practicing swordsmanship until she noticed a white bird fluttering above a nest. The other boys yelled at him to do better. Knowing they were up to mischief, Ian continued on her way. At the main gate, her father's servant, Ian Du, greeted her and inquired about the lessons. Ian replied that today was just introductions. Ian Du remarked that it was only the first day and then asked if they should head back. Ian Du led the way, but noticed Ian hadn't moved. He turned to see Ian undoing her hair ribbon. Ian Du bent down to hear Ian's instructions. She whispered in his ear and gave him the ribbon. After listening, Ian Du said it wasn't a difficult request. He took the ribbon and went to speak with the school staff. Ian watched from a distance, unsure if her plan would work. She could see them talking. If she had known this would happen, she would have worn some jewelry. She hadn't because she'd heard the teachers disliked extravagance, so she had deliberately dressed plainly. But she hoped the ribbon would be enough to persuade the staff. Fortunately, it worked, and a staff member walked over to the boys and announced that they should go inside. The teacher would be arriving soon. The boys were disappointed, but left. Ian Du hurried back to report that he had done as Ian instructed, but what exactly had happened? Ian pointed towards the nest. Perhaps the birds were still there, chirping. She was glad she had acted in time. Satisfied, she told Ian Du they could leave. Just as they were about to depart, Ian Du, being closest to the tree, heard something and stopped Ian. They saw a small bird fall from the nest and chirp. Luckily, it landed in a bush. He reached out to grab the bird, but Ian stopped him with a cloth. She scooped up the small bird with the cloth. She had heard that young animals shouldn't be touched with bare hands. She worried the handkerchief might not be enough, but she asked Ian Du if he could put it back in a nest. Ian Du considered folding his arms. He hadn't climbed a tree in 5 years, but why not try? It's no use, someone said. It was a boy dressed in a golden silk robe embroidered with willow branches. He asked if they were startled and apologized. A light blue jade pendant, adorned with sapphire beads, hung from his belt, clearly marking him as a child of high status. Ian asked why it was no use. The boy said its wing was broken. He pointed to the injured part of the bird. Ian finally noticed the broken wing, too small for such a young bird. The boy surmised the bird would die. She understood. Even when the chick fell, its parents hadn't reacted. It meant they, too, had given up on the bird's life. She felt pity for the creature. The boy asked, "Why did you do that?" She replied, "What?" He said, "You had your servant give his hair a ribbon to get the others to go inside early." He elaborated. Ian realized he had been watching the whole time, without intervening. He asked her why she had done it. Couldn't she have just stopped them directly? Wasn't she the Becker twins' cousin? Ian tried to keep her expression neutral, wondering how the twins would react. The thought almost made her frown, but even so, it didn't mean she had to divulge every detail about her family to a boy she'd just met. She replied that her cousins were competitive, and if she stopped them, they would only become more determined to catch the bird. Competitive. The boy doubled over with laughter, clutching his stomach. Ian didn't understand what was so funny. She told him they should go. Fighting back laughter and tears, he asked, "Leaving already?" Who was he to keep her here? Ian wondered. What about the bird? Ian asked. She told him to put it back in the bushes. Even if it were returned to its nest, it would die anyway. No choice, she thought, a familiar sadness tugging at her, a reflection of her own abandonment. If she disturbed the nest, the parent birds might abandon the other hatchlings. Even if she wanted to care for it, Becky's family had enough trouble caring for her. The boy said he could heal its broken wing. Ian finally looked at him. He seemed pleased to have finally caught her attention. We're a little late with introductions, aren't we? My name is Suk Jayak, a distant relative of the esteemed Dr. Suk who recently arrived here. Solid, imposing decorative architecture, peonies lining the walkways. Did being a respected doctor really bring in this much wealth? Ian wondered. As they walked, she was drawn to the flowers. Noticing her focus, Suk Jayak guessed she liked peonies. She said it was her first time seeing this color. The peonies in Becky's garden were mostly white. Suk Jayak replied that Becky's garden was renowned for its beauty, and if she wanted, he could pick some for her before she left. Ian declined, saying he needn't bother. Why was this boy so eager to please? She couldn't quite grasp his intentions. If he wanted to build connections, the twins would be a better target. Suddenly, her eyes widened. "Is my father here?" she asked Suk Jayak. He looked surprised, but quickly denied it and asked what was wrong. Ian thought she had seen her father, but the distance was too great to be sure. After a moment of trying to discern the figure, she finally said, "Nothing." It must have been her mistake. "Is that so?" Suk Jayak replied, gesturing towards a building, telling Ian that it was where he was staying and that there was a guest room with some delicious tea. Ian offered a polite smile, but inwardly wondered how he could be so sure her father wasn't here, when it had only just arrived at the villa. The small bird lay in a makeshift nest of gauze. Suk Jayak told Ian he had set the wing, and now it was just a matter of waiting to see what happened. He added that even if it could use its wing, it couldn't be returned to the nest, as it had been touched by humans. Ian said she trusted him. Suk Jayak had been observing Ian for some time. He saw how much she wanted the best for the bird, yet couldn't care for it herself. He saw the pity in her eyes and asked, "Why don't you keep it?" The question stirred painful memories. Every animal she had ever kept had died, each time due to the twins' mistakes or inexplicable circumstances. Ian replied that she knew he was studying medicine, but she had difficulty even caring for herself. So how could someone like her care for a sick bird? Suk Jayak responded excitedly, but the powerful Becky family wouldn't lack servants, would they? If you can't raise it yourself, you could have a servant do it. That magnificent image was just what Ian imagined he might say. Despite being from the powerful Beckery family, she claimed she couldn't even take care of a bird. He thought he'd misheard. Choi Yok couldn't help but laugh. Her expression was simply too amusing. He said she didn't need to lie. Did she have to ask when he clearly knew what she was thinking? She shook her head and said, no, it would be great if he knew, because it meant she wouldn't have to pretend. She had finally spoken the truth. It was best, they said, to show outsiders the family's flaws, especially considering this was the first time he had met her. If he were a clever child, he would understand her true meaning. Stop asking. Choi Yok finally stopped laughing and said that for some reason, he felt they would become good friends. Ian wondered what had gotten into him. The carriage slowly made its way down the road. Inside, Ian asked if the gift box was too heavy, offering to carry it for her. Ian looked tired. Yawning, She said she was fine. Earlier, Choi Yok had given her peonies to celebrate the beginning of their friendship. She had actually received peonies in the end. Choi Yok, someone she had never encountered in her past life, and this child who was never mentioned in the novel. Suspicious, yes, but she didn't think he was a bad child. He had even thoughtfully placed the peonies in a box to prevent them from being damaged. Thinking of how to use the flowers, she smiled. First, she wanted to decorate her father's study with one, then place one in her room, and finally, she would dry one to make a sachet. Ian suddenly thought her grandfather's reaction would be amusing, stern, yet blushing. A warrior like me using sachet. Who said I wouldn't accept it? Leave it here for now. She couldn't help but smile at the thought. Ian finally arrived home, and just as Ian was helping her out of the carriage, they heard a commotion. I told you no, yet you still do this. Another voice pleaded, please check again. The guard replied impatiently, sigh, even if we check, it's useless. You're too stubborn. The person demanded, is this how the Beckery family treats its guests? The guard scoffed, what guest? You're just a vagrant who can't even prove their identity. Another guard added, leave while we're still being nice. Before we have to drag you away, you should just go. The guard ordered. The guest, dressed in unusual black clothes and a veiled black hat, challenged them to try, a deathly gaze piercing through the gaps in the veil. Ian's jaw dropped in surprise. Why was Nam Gong here? He was the next head of the Nam Gong family, one of the 10 strongest families, the biological father of Nam Gong Liu Chung, the novel's male protagonist, a close friend of Ian's father, and also one of the people responsible for Ian's father's death. She only knew that much. She wondered what he had actually done. That damn useless novel, Ian grumbled internally. But why would such a remarkable person be standing here like this? Ian approached the gate. I came because I heard a commotion. That frustratingly useless novel, Ian grumbled to himself. But why is someone so remarkable just standing there like that? Ian walked up to the gate. I came because I heard the noise, he said. What happened? If I can, I'll help. The guest, Nam Gong turned and asked, and you are. She wasn't supposed to know who Nam Gong was at this point, so she introduced herself as if meeting him for the first time. With an elegant curtsy, she said, greetings, I am Ian of the Beckery family. Yes, I'm the daughter of your friend. The guard replied, this is none of your concern, Mississippi. The other guard yelled at Nam Gong are you going to leave or not? Wow, how arrogant on their own territory, Ian thought. Ian called out to the guards, you bastards, this person is... A sudden, transmitted voice threatened him in his silence. Nam Gong cleared his throat and presented his invitation to Ian. I have an invitation, but these heartless fellows just won't let me in, he complained. A guard retorted, how can we blindly believe you and just let you in? Nam Gong replied, that's why I've been asking you to look at the letter this whole time. Another guard responded, without an identity token, we cannot let you in. Choi Yok was about to lose his temper. Ian glanced at Choi Yok, seemingly stopping him with a transmitted message. Did he really not want to reveal his identity? Ian asked to see the letter. Fine. Nam Gong relented, handing her the invitation. She began to unfold the letter. This was a matter that could have been resolved with a simple call to her father, but their stubbornness suggested this was more than just the gatekeeper's personal issue. She examined the letter. It was indeed her father's handwriting, a brief invitation, the recipient unnamed, but her father's seal was correctly stamped upon it. Unfurling the invitation, she declared, this is my father's handwriting and seal. Listen. Nam Gong suppressed a smile, thinking how much this little being resembled her father. She presented the letter, but the guard still refused them entry. He sighed, just as he'd expected. The guard explained that there was no space in the reception hall at the moment. What? My dear, what nonsense is this? The third young master is out, so we cannot take this person to his quarters either, one of the guards added. Choi Yok questioned, the young master is out, but he didn't tell me. Ian recalled asking Suk Jia-yak at school if her father was here, and he had denied it. Choi Yok whispered to Ian, Miss, I'll go in and check. Ian replied, all right, ask if anyone knows where father has gone. Truthfully, she didn't mind this level of slight, but if her father's destination was that esteemed doctor's, Suk Jia's image surfaced, and she wondered why she had this suspicious feeling. Nam Gong told Ian to go in as well, as he would wait alone since Kong wasn't present. Suk Ji appeared like a hazy image and asked why she had such a strange, uneasy feeling. Nam told Ian to go in too. Since Kong was out, he'd wait alone. Ian replied that she would also wait. After all, Her father's guest was her guest as well. As she waited, Ian wondered if, at this point in the novel, Nam Gong had ever been here. Had he visited in disguise, explaining why she had no memory of it? She felt as though she was forgetting something important. Suddenly, Nam Gong asked, had Nam Gong been here before? Was it because he came while keeping his identity a secret? I didn't even know this happened, Ian thought, a nagging feeling creeping in like there was something else she was forgetting. Suddenly, Nam Gong spoke up and asked, "What's that?" Startled, Ian opened the box. Inside, nestled neatly, were 3 pink peonies. "These are flowers a child gave me today. I was planning to put one in Father's study, one in my room, and dry the last one to make a sachet," she explained brightly, brimming with anticipation. "I had them place one in Father's study, one in my room, and had the last one dried to make into an incense pouch," she explained cheerfully, clearly looking forward to it. "A sachet?" Nam Gong inquired. "Yes," she replied excitedly. "Father's birthday is coming up soon, but because of me, he's very busy and won't be holding a celebration. And I heard he'll refuse all gifts, so I wanted to at least prepare something small for him," Ian said proudly. Nam Gong blushed, thinking that having a daughter next wouldn't be so bad. "And I heard he's planning to reject all the other gifts too, so I wanted to at least prepare something just for him," Ian said proudly. Nam Gong blushed, a warm thought crossing his mind. Maybe having a daughter wouldn't be so bad after all. It suddenly dawned on Ian that Nam Gong was here because of her father's birthday, and it was likely to deliver a gift, which her father had refused. The argument stemmed from hurt feelings, caused by her father's stubborn refusal. Who knew? Perhaps this was the very incident that led to her father's death. Ian attempted a coaxing tone. "Sir, you said you were Father's friend, right?" Nam Gong thought, "What's this all of a sudden?" "Yes," he answered. Ian frantically searched for a reason, something to say to prevent them from fighting. "Your arrival here feels like fate," Yun said, her expression still frozen, yet her face slowly beginning to soften. "Since your arrival is so serendipitous," Ian continued, her icy expression thawing slightly. "You'll be preparing a gift for Father, right?" She was so worried her expression became awkward. "Ah!" Nam Gong burst out laughing. He laughed so hard he nearly choked. Ian stood there bewildered. Why this sudden outburst? Had she done something wrong? Her eyes darted around nervously, unsure what to do. Finally, Nam Gong caught his breath. In all my years, I never thought I'd see the day I'd meet a thief at the Beckery family estate gates." After his laughter subsided, he asked her what she would do for him if he actually delivered a gift to her father. "What?" Ian asked. Nam Gong replied. "Didn't you say you were going to make a scented pouch?" "Yes," Ian answered. "Then make one for me too." "What?" Ian cried out in surprise. "Then, no matter what, I'll definitely deliver a gift to your father. Do you know how to embroider?" A blushing Ian replied, "I'm not very good at it." He's certainly quick to make demands. He continued, "Even so, it has to be made by your own hands. If not, I'll settle the score with you later." Ian thought to herself, "But I'm the one who got robbed." "Well, I can embroider, but I'm terrible at it. It'll take a very, very, very long time," she said shyly. "I'll wait," Nam Gong replied readily. Ian grew even more flustered. "Well, there's no helping it then. Sir, even if Father refuses your gift, you won't be angry and you'll still give it to him, right?" He replied proudly, "Of course. A man's word is his bond." "Then I'll make one for you. You have to understand, even if it doesn't look good." "All right," she promised. Nam Gong smiled, amused. His friend's daughter was quite endearing. He slowly reached out, intending to pat her head, but was interrupted by a sharp voice. "What's going on? Why is that peasant here?" They both turned. A carriage had stopped, and 2 servants stood by as 3 boys emerged. The twins spoke in unison. "You said you were too sick for class, but you seem perfectly fine. Were you faking it?" Ian's face darkened. Were the twins insane, picking a fight in front of Nam Gong she thought, or had they recognized him? But they paid Nam Gong no attention. They saw the box in her hand and asked what she had. "Flowers," she replied. "Really? Let us see." Ian didn't even have time to react. One of the twins had already walked up to her and demanded, "What's the matter? Why can't you open it? Is it not flowers? If you can't open it, give it to me. I'll open it." Ian couldn't stand these pesky twins. They continued to pester her for the box. One said, "Wait, they really are flowers. Come on, why put flowers in a box?" I was getting excited. The other asked maliciously why. "They're pretty." His brother scoffed. "What are you babbling about all of a sudden? Are you sick? Give them to me," the twin demanded. "I think they'd be perfect for Riri. She couldn't come to class today because she's sick." "You're right. You wouldn't refuse to give me one, would you?" Yeah. Giving me one wouldn't be a waste, right?" The twins took turns bullying her. Ian felt herself caught in a whirlpool of malice. She could clearly feel their ill will. "Po, don't be so pushy. I'm sure Ian understands." Myung stepped in, addressing the twins. "Ian, we're cousins, right? Good things should be shared." She knew from the moment she saw them that it wouldn't end well. Ian held out a flower, figuring it was a small enough request. She'd give them one flower at most. The twin with the red right sleeve threw the flower on the ground, claiming he'd accidentally stepped on it. The delicate bloom was ruined. "He actually said you should hand the flower to me properly. What are you doing? Give me another one." Nam Gong watched, speechless, as Ian offered a second flower, only to have it destroyed in the same manner. The twins demanded again, "Come on, get to me properly." "Huh, I might have dropped it by accident. What's the big deal? There's one left. At least give me that one." They continued to badger Ian for the flowers. Nam Gong, fists clenched, watched the scene unfold, wanting to intervene, but was suddenly interrupted by the loud snap of a box closing. "Fine," Ian replied. "Here you go. You're giving it to Riri, right? Since it's in the box. Even if you drop it, you won't step on it." Fury burned in the twins' faces. They could no longer destroy the flower. They shifted the blame to Ian. "You should have done that from the start. Because of you, we wasted 2 flowers. Let's go." Watching the twins leave, Myung patted Ian's shoulder. "You're so kind, Ian." He chuckled and followed after the twins. Nam Gong, still fuming, complained, "That's unbelievable. Why did you stop me?" She responded with a small smile. "Because you don't want to reveal your identity." Her answer silenced him. Why could this child, his dear friend's precious daughter, accept this situation so readily? The situation was far worse than he had heard. That day, before her father died, she had a dream. Nam Gong, enraged by such trivial matters, had deliberately stalled, and as a result, her father had died alone, with no one to help him. In a panic, a grown-up Ian slapped her own cheeks in disbelief. Impossible. This never happened in the original story. It's too early. This must be a dream. Ian could be seen try to wake the still sleeping Ian. She could neither hear nor feel him calling her. Helpless, he pulled back the covers, yelling, "Miss, it's time to wake up." This startled Ian awake. Ian quickly apologized. "You asked me to wake you up early, and it seemed like you were having a nightmare, so." Ian replied, No, thank you for waking me up." She was relieved it was just a dream. Before, Nam Gong had ultimately lost his temper, revealed his identity, and kicked the guard away. A stunned Ian, putting on her monocle, had given him a perfect 10. But wait, if he was going to reveal his identity anyway, what was the point of hiding it in the first place? Despite this, she felt a sense of relief. Upon returning home, she collapsed onto a chair, as if fainting. As Ian gently wiped her face, she understood why they had her return early from class. A maid entered and told Ian she would help her change. Ian hopped off the chair, politely declining, saying she would do it later. She told Ian they should leave now. As she neared her destination, she could hear a commotion. "You've gone too far, hitting someone with a bamboo hat. I've never seen such disrespectful behavior." Another voice replied, "You should be grateful I only went this far." Looking resolute, she knew there was only one reason she'd be up this early. She hurried to the door, where she could hear a lecture. "You're the next head of the family now. You can't act this way just because you're angry." The other voice complained, "Are you telling me I have to tiptoe around everyone?" "That's not what I meant." The other voice explained, "Father." Ian called out before Kong could finish. He gestured for Nam Gong to stop. Ian pushed the door open, looking flustered but determined, wanting to erase her father's death flag. "Don't be too harsh on Mr. Nam Gong, she stated firmly. Both her father and Nam Gong were speechless. "Whoa, what?" her father replied. Nam Gong could be seen suppressing a laugh, as she didn't know the direct cause of her father's death. She could only eliminate all the possibilities she suspected. "If you clearly stated in the letter that he was an important guest," Ian pressed, "would the gatekeepers really have ignored him just because Nam Gong was dressed shabbily?" Nam Gong winced at the word shabbily. "So this is all your fault, father," she continued, her voice rising with agitation. "So, please, both of you, stop arguing," she pleaded. Her father, Kong, stood and pulled her into a comforting embrace. "Why are you so pale, dear?" he asked gently. "Did you have a bad dream?" He touched his forehead to hers. I apologize. I behaved poorly. I've already punished the gatekeepers, so you don't need to worry so much. Suddenly, Ian remembered. Her father had punished the gatekeepers. Nam Gong, sitting with his arms and legs crossed, retorted, if you call docking 3 months' wages and 2 weeks' probation a punishment. Because Ian was still present, her father didn't want to argue. Let's not talk about this anymore, Kong suggested. Ian thought to herself, this is why Nam Gong is so dissatisfied. This is father's only weakness. She couldn't let the subject drop. It had to be addressed. Father, she began. Don't you find it strange? Why would the gatekeepers ignore Mr. Nam Gong? They should have known you'd punish them when you returned, and they're not fools. The implication behind her words was clear. Were the gatekeepers truly fools to turn away someone carrying father's letter? Her kind and righteous father, due to his noble character, wasn't interested in such veiled hostility. They must have tried to ascertain the identity of father's guest, someone of renown in Merlin, and attempted to intercept them by any means possible. Ian, at this moment, could guess that they would soon invite Mr. Nam Gong to dinner under the pretense of an apology, wouldn't they? Her eyes met Nam Gong's. She panicked. Oh no, our eyes met. Nam Gong thought to himself that her personality would be just as troublesome as her father's. But she's not a fool, is she? He asked. Kong glared at Nam Gong. What did you just say about my daughter? He demanded. Nam Gong flustered. No, wait, that's not. Well, now that we've met, I'll give you a gift. A father-daughter reunion is a joyous occasion, but come and sit down. Ian concluded that this gentleman was also weak in verbal sparring. The sun began to set, its light streaming through the windows. Ian fell asleep, clutching the dagger, the last gift she had received. Ian's father pulled a blanket over her and returned to his conversation with Nam Gong. When I first heard you had a daughter, I laughed. Those fools, jealous of your reputation, spread such malicious rumors. Nam Gong continued to explain, when I received your letter and came here, do you know how many times I questioned what I was seeing? I came because you asked for help, but just as Ian said, I was reprimanded instead. Kong apologized, saying it was his fault. Nam Gong said regretfully, she's a bright child, regrettably so. Her dantian is shattered. After receiving your letter, I sent people to inquire in my own way. He produced a plaque and placed it on the table. The omniscient doctor, I've discovered his whereabouts. Horn plaques held special significance for the people of Merlin. To give one's horn plaque to another was a pledge of absolute trust and honor, a promise to aid the recipient regardless of the reason. With this plaque, Nam Gong stated, even the omniscient doctor will be compelled to treat your daughter. A stunned Kong asked, isn't this your horn plaque? It is, Nam Gong replied. It was his father's plaque. As a kind and honest man, Kong was about to refuse, but Nam Gong cut him off, telling him not even to think about it. He said his father never imagined a day would come when this plaque would be needed. Where else could this be used if the omniscient doctor disappears again, after he's already disappeared once? Nam Gong mused, having already secured his father's permission. He wasn't intending to simply gift the plaque. He had a request concerning his son, Ryu Chung, who resided at another estate. Ugh, that Baek Ryung, one of the twins complained. Why do we keep seeing her around lately? They tossed a box onto a bed, their whining continuing. It's so annoying, her dragging that trash around. She must think she's actually part of the Baek family now. Tell me about it. The other twin chimed in. I don't want her treated like family, like us. Baek Ryung watched the twins' back and forth complaints with apprehension, then asked anxiously if they recognized the guard in the bamboo, hat trailing behind Ian. If it was one of the house guards who reported them, the repercussions wouldn't be as severe. He's not her guard, one twin replied. The other quickly agreed. Yeah, he can't be. Ian only ever brings one servant when she goes to her studies. Ri Myong breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe he's just a guest, he ventured. The twins responded haughtily. He's a nobody. Looks like he shouldn't even be allowed in here. Ri Myong thought to himself that these brats had no fear of gossip, since dealing with the fallout always fell on his shoulders. He needed a break. He told the twins they couldn't behave this way in front of others anymore. Fine, as long as we don't have to see her, one twin replied carelessly. It's her fault for wandering around anyway. Ri Myong forced himself to calm down. Perhaps he was just overly worried. Nam Gong Il and Yi Kong went to meet the other family members. Nam Gong Il introduced himself as Nam Gong Il of the Nam Gong clan. Baek Ri-mu was startled to hear the name of the Nam Gong clan. It was a shame that Nam Gong Mo Chao, the former leader of the Orthodox faction and one of the 10 greatest masters in the world, hadn't come himself. Still, the presence of his son, Nam Gong Il, was a great honor. Ri-mu apologized for the less than grand reception, blaming the lack of time to prepare, and then reproached Yi Kong, keeping such an important connection hidden. If he hadn't bribed the gatekeepers beforehand, they wouldn't have even known. Ri-mu mentioned that he'd heard the gatekeepers had been disrespectful, and at this, Nam Gong Il frowned. Witnessing such bullying was a most unpleasant experience, but Ri-mu had a different perspective. He assured Nam Gong Il that, upon learning the truth, he had dealt with the gatekeepers severely. Nam Gong Il said he had heard as much from Ri-mu already. Ri-mu insisted that Nam Gong Il couldn't have heard the full extent of it, as he had dismissed the gatekeepers entirely. They would never set foot on Baek family land again. Yi Kong spoke up. "You mean you fired them all?" "Of course," Ri-mu replied. "How else could I guarantee such disrespect wouldn't happen again?" Yi Kong and Nam Gong Il exchanged glances. They both seemed to recall Ian's earlier words. The gatekeepers weren't fools. Lady Aileen arrived, apologizing for her tardiness. She had brought the children to meet Nam Gong Il, as they had been pestering her to meet the esteemed master. Ri-mu thought to himself, perfect timing. He announced to the children that he would introduce them to the master. "On the far left is my eldest son, Baek Ri-yong. The girl to the right is my daughter, Baek Ri, who is rather shy and rarely leaves the house." Baek Ri-myong bowed to Nam Gong Il. Ri-mu continued with the twins. "On the left is Solo K, and on the right is Baek Ri-pyo." The twins both bowed to Nam Gong Il. As soon as the introductions were finished, a demonic aura of anger emanated from Nam Gong Il. Aileen, oblivious, inquired, "I hear Master Nam Gong Il has a son named Ryu Chung. Is that right? There are rumors he's quite the prodigious talent. It would be wonderful if he could meet and befriend these children of similar age." Nam Gong Il responded with a cold laugh, saying he wasn't sure if Yu Chong only associated with children of equal standing. Ian felt as if struck by lightning. What did he mean? Was he openly rejecting her children? Fighting back the urge to wipe the sweat from her brow, she forced a laugh. "Ha! It seems Yu Chong is truly remarkable." "Of course," Nam Gong Il replied nonchalantly. Ian drew her sons closer, boasting, "My sons are also diligently cultivating their martial arts. They are about to reach the 3rd level of divine body martial arts soon." Nam Gong Il glanced down at the twins and sneered. He'd lost his composure, utterly lost it. The other adults were too stunned to speak. Yi Kong screamed internally. Nam Gong Il was flustered. Yi Kong spoke up, and Baek Ri-mu gave an awkward laugh. Compared to Master Nam Gong, who reached the peak enlightenment realm at the young age of 20 and whose fame is widespread, they must seem quite inadequate. However, these children are sincere in their pursuit of the sword. Guidance from a master, such as yourself, would be an immense help. Baek Ri-yong immediately echoed his father's words, bowing respectfully. If Master Nam Gong would offer his guidance, it would be a lesson he would carry with him always. "Aren't you supposed to be attending to Ian?" Nam Gong Il asked. "What are you talking about?" Yi Kong asked. Nam Gong Il told Yi Kong he hadn't touched his food yet, and that if he was worried about Ian, he could go back to her. Yi Kong felt he was being subtly dismissed, and that Nam Gong Il sensed his concern for Ian. Baek Ri-mu assured him that he would pay special attention to the meal, so Yi Kong needn't worry and should just go and be with Ian. Yi Kong's expression showed he understood that Nam Gong Il had something he didn't want him to see. He finally left, still worried about the situation. Nam Gong Il sat regally, arms crossed, legs crossed at the ankles. "I've experienced this many times. On a small scale, it's dinner invitations. On a larger scale, it's even gifts of treasures. And everyone wants the same thing, the powerful backing of the Nam Gong family." The Baek family's head housekeeper, Zhang Shuyan, called out, "Young Master Nam Gong." Feeling the title lacked proper respect, Nam Gong Il retorted, "Madam Zhang, is it? Let me ask you a question. Did you receive the flowers?" The question stunned the twins and Baek Ri-yong. "Excuse me." The flustered Beck family member asked again, looking as bewildered as ever. Beck Ryong, understanding, answered for Beck Ri. Yes, the peonies were beautiful, weren't they? Still confused, she could only stammer, what? Oh yes. Let me ask you another question. What color were the peonies you received? By now, Beck Ryong was trembling. The peonies were white, she answered, as the peonies surrounding the Beck estate were indeed white. Nam Gong Il burst into unrestrained laughter, unsettling everyone. He asked, I recall you saying you were going to bring them to your sick younger sister, yes? Beck Ri-mu exclaimed, Young master, please calm down. What is the meaning of this? Nam Gong Il glared. Calm down. You are Beck Ryong of the Beck family, correct? I've heard things about you. You're the eldest grandson, a bright child of excellent character. Beck Ryong wore a look of shame, feeling his earlier performance had been inadequate. Nam Gong Il stood and apologized to Madame Zhang for his rudeness. However, Madame Zhang, you need to manage your household better. If the Beck family presents such a face, doesn't it? Tarnish the name of the Beck family head. He then turned to the boys, glaring. Arms that can't even hold on to a flower, how can they wield a sword? Don't appear before me again. You'll look like fools. The twins burst into tears, and Ian cried out, Is this man mad? While Ian slept, the entire estate had been turned upside down. Yendu knelt before Ian, tears streaming down his face. I apologize for what happened earlier, Yendu said, his face a blank canvas. I am deeply ashamed of young Master Soloke and Beck Ripyo's appalling behavior. He found Nam Gong Il's actions unbelievable. Beck Ryong told him, It's all right. Yendu asked her if Nam Gong Il and her father had fought. Averting her gaze, Beck Ryong replied that it wasn't so much a fight as a slight disagreement. It's all the same, Yendu said, rubbing his temples. What's the point of stopping them from fighting over gifts when they bicker about everything else? As his thoughts drifted, he noticed the box on the table. Opening it, he saw 3 pink peonies inside. Did father go out last night? Yendu asked. What? How did you know? Beck Ryong responded, surprised. Yes, he said he was going to see esteemed Dr. Su. Beck Ryong confirmed. Yendu smiled. Where's father now? He asked. She had simply wanted to thank her father, but why was he here? She had run into Su Jiayue, and her father was with him. Su Jiayue had been brought into their residence, and they sat facing each other. He sipped his tea elegantly, like true nobility. She recalled their earlier meeting. Su Jiayue had introduced himself as Yendu's close friend, much to her father's delight. The hope and joy in his eyes had made it impossible for her to deny it, and besides, it wasn't as if she could deny their friendship. Aren't you going to drink your medicine? Su Jiayue asked. I'll drink it later. Yendu replied, still avoiding eye contact. It'll be harder to drink when it's cold. He frowned. Yendu's nagging is enough as it is. What are you doing here? She asked. I heard you were going to the Nam Gong estate, he replied. Did father tell you? Yes, he said, taking a sip of tea. To be honest, in your current condition, I think it's a bit too early for a trip, but I'm sure you have a reason you must go. Yendu thought he spoke as if he knew the real purpose of her journey. Su Jiayue said that the esteemed doctor would come to examine her the day after tomorrow. Yendu asked Su Jiayue to tell the doctor. She said thank you. All right, he replied. Then he added, then why not drink your medicine now? Damn it, Yendu thought, I'll drink it now. She looked at the medicine in her hand. Hesitantly, she drank the medicine. Did you come all this way just to tell me the esteemed doctor is coming the day after tomorrow? She asked. Truthfully, she still felt awkward around him. Even now, it was hard to guess what he was thinking. It was strange that he came personally. A message through a servant would have sufficed. I couldn't do that, Su Jiayue replied. Couldn't I have come because I missed you? He asked, his expression unreadable. Yendu was speechless. He continued, like a man smitten. I mean, this is the first time I've had a friend. A chill ran down Yendu's spine. What was with this kid, she wondered. When did they become so close? Su Jiayue gestured for a servant to enter. The servant brought in a pot of peonies. He told her it was a gift for her. Beck Ripyo had broken off 3 peony blossoms, hadn't he? He had brought seedlings so she could see them anytime. Touched and saddened, she asked why Su Jiayue was so good to her. But his kindness troubled her. Wouldn't the twins take their anger out on these peonies? Would the servants be able to take proper care of the flowers? And she would be leaving the residence for a while. Something that required long-term care wasn't very suitable for her. Su Jiayue noticed her expression, just like he had with the injured bird. He said she didn't look very happy. Yendu quickly denied it, saying she loved them. He said if she liked them, he had a few other things she might enjoy. He was smiling broadly, as if he'd seen something amusing on his way there. In the central hall of the Beck Protectorate, the patriarch sat with his eyes closed, seemingly deep in thought. Below him, Ian's twins, Myung and Rue Lee, children of Imok, knelt on the floor. Ian cried out, "Father, Nam Gong Il of the Nam Gong clan, you must punish that insolent man, that Nam Gong Il. You have no idea how disrespectful he was. How dare he disregard and mock my sons? The children of the Beck family carry the blood of our powerful clan." The patriarch questioned what happened. She continued, he said Pew and Rue Lee couldn't even wield a sword properly, and told them never to appear before him again. Ian haughtily added that she couldn't understand why Nam Gong Il would treat them that way. Suddenly, it occurred to Ian that even if they called witnesses, it would only be Nam Gong Man and Beck Ryong. All the gatekeepers answered to her mother. She glanced at Ikong, glaring at him. In terms of numbers, they had more witnesses on their side. She could insist that Nam Gong Man and Beck Ryong had conspired together. Even if they feigned ignorance, what could Ikong do? And what about the peony? The patriarch asked. Ian finally understood why all the children were present, but Ryong wasn't. Undoubtedly, Ryong had already told the patriarch everything. Pointing furiously at Ikong, she exclaimed, "Father, what's the big deal about a peony? Ask the gatekeepers." Beck Ryong herself said she would give it to the children first. Who is Nam Gong Il to interfere in the Beck family's affairs? The children were just playing around. How is this any different from the Nam Gong clan looking down on our Beck family? Ian, pointing at Ikong, shouted, "Father, what's the big deal about a peony? Ask the gatekeepers." Beck Ryong herself said she would give it to the children first. Who is Nam Gong Il to interfere in the Beck family's affairs? The children were just playing around. How is this any different from the Nam Gong clan looking down on our Beck family? Ikong, such a wicked person is your close friend. You too, silence. The patriarch roared. Just who is it that's so reckless and shameless, unable to distinguish right from wrong, acting so barbaric? Ask the gatekeepers. Those fools had already told Zhang Shulian everything before I even asked. A startled Ian could only listen to her father's scolding. He told Ian he was giving her only 3 choices. Send the children away, and she could stay in the Beck family. 2. She leaves, but the children stay. 3. They all leave the Beck family. Father, Ryong called out. Zhang Shulian announced, "Lady Ryong of the Beck family has arrived. Let her in." The patriarch commanded. Those kneeling turned to watch Ryong. She entered and bowed to her grandfather, hoping she wasn't too late to salvage the situation. You really treat the central hall like your own bedroom, coming and going as you please. You even brought someone unauthorized, and that requested follower is hiding behind the door. Those who try to stop her could only swallow their discontent, trying their best to remain composed. Grandfather, Ryong asked, what is she here for? Ryong replied that she had made a good friend at school named Su Jiayue, and she had brought the peony pot as a gift. Ryong nearly stumbled as she tried to lift the peony pot. It was much heavier than she anticipated, startling both her grandfather and father. She fell towards Myung, who instinctively reached out and steadied her, preventing her from falling. Myung suddenly panicked. He shouldn't have helped Ryong. She should have fallen toward her father. Why would she side with him? Aunt Ilan suddenly roared like a demon. Myung, what are you doing right now? This startled both Myung and Ian, but looking at their grandfathers, gaze fixed on him, Myung instinctively felt that protecting Ian at this moment was the right choice. Aunt Ilan, too consumed by her own hatred, was oblivious to the shift in the atmosphere. She continued her unrestrained tirade. Beck Myung, are you insane? You're actually taking that little girl's side in front of me right now. Beck Ian, Beck Myung, what's going on with the two of you? Ian, frightened by her aunt's outburst, hid fearfully behind Myung. Myung pleaded with Aunt Ilan to calm down. His father, Imok, swiftly struck a pressure point on Ilan, rendering her unconscious. Damn, appeasing her later is going to take a while, Imok thought, but he couldn't let her further provoke his father. He placated his father, apologizing and explaining that he was worried about Ilan's emotional state. She hasn't come to her senses yet, still ranting, the patriarch said, then instructed Imok to take Ilan back to her quarters. Imok, feeling like he had just narrowly escaped a disaster, immediately obeyed. The incident made Ian realize that her grandfather was still somewhat soft-hearted towards his family. So even if her aunt was banished, she would clearly return after 4 or 5 years. Then banishment shouldn't be the end of it. Grandfather, she pleaded. I'm fine. Father also brought me back peonies, and I even got this pot. And Brother Myung was already close with Brother Pueo and Brother Ake. Asking him to stop them was truly difficult, so I don't want Grandfather to be too angry. I still want to see the flowers next year. The patriarch paused, observing her. Then he replied, flowers bloom and flowers fall. Do not sway between joy and sorrow. She gave a foolish grin. Ah, yes, you're right. The patriarch scowled. You can still laugh at a time like this. This made her immediately shut her mouth. He reproached, you haven't done anything right either. You think everything is fine just because you didn't argue. How admirable. You even brought gifts and pleaded for those who harassed you. You're no better in disgracing the Beck family in front of Nam Gong man, no matter what anyone says. My decision will not change. No, this is better. He pointed at Kong and Ian, commanding, both of you, watch closely from over there. Ian quickly moved to her father's side. She had anticipated this, but her target now wasn't her grandfather. But if you came to the central hall just to spout this nonsense. The patriarch rubbed his temples, his gaze settling on Myung. He called out, Beck Ri Myung, I trust you've learned something from this incident. Yes, sir, Myung replied nervously. Ian's target was Beck Ri Myung. Brother, are you all right? She asked, looking at his hand, swollen from the whipping. Hearing Ian's question, Myung turned to look at her. As Su Jiuyue entered, Myung asked, how did young Master Su get in here? Su Jiuyue reached into his inner pocket, explaining that Chong had asked him to deliver something. This is ointment. He told Myung to extend his hand. Grandfather arrived, and Baekri Myung was confined for 6 months. Myung winced as Su Jiuyue applied the ointment to his palm. On the other hand, the twins' punishment was postponed, with the patriarch leaving the choice to Ilan, since she had already been punished, with 3 options. Myung grumbled internally. Why was he the only one who got beaten and confined for 6 months in the end? How was he supposed to explain this to his friends? Tell them he got in trouble for acting so cowardly. While he hadn't been able to stop the twins from harassing Ian, he hadn't thought to discard what she had given him either. It was so unfair. Brother. Ian's call snapped him out of his thoughts. She asked him if it hurt, reaching out to wipe the sweat from his brow with a handkerchief. In that moment, all he felt was a surprising swell of emotion at Ian's gesture. I've only ever shown you my bad side, Myung said to her. I'm sorry. It's all right, she replied. Unlike Ian, who told him it wasn't his fault, what were the twins doing? He made up his mind. From now on, let's get along as cousins. Myung's words were met with immediate displeasure from the twins. How can you say that? One of the twins demanded, his voice laced with indignation. Because of that lowlife, we're now being kicked out of the family. Calm down, Pyo, Myung replied. He thought about how he had just been beaten, yet Pyo was already raising his voice. What do you mean, calm down? Pyo asked, his tone sharp. You're the one who needs to get a grip, brother. Baekri Pyo, what is this disrespectful behavior in front of outsiders? It's all because of that lowlife, Pyo retorted. Ian and Gyak observed the commotion between the twins and Myung. She had that look on her face again. That same look. Gyak suggested they leave, just as Gyak and Ian were about to depart. One of the twins, pointed at them accusingly. You knew, didn't you? You knew Nam Gong 1 was there and deliberately didn't tell us, right? That's why you were so quick to give us those flowers. Myung thought, what nonsense is this? Ian stopped and turned around. Ian, Gyak said, his expression unreadable, his eyes narrowed slightly. She spoke. Yes, to be honest. I didn't know the Nam Gong patriarch was there at the time. But so what? Did I force you to step on the peonies? Before the door swung shut, a smug smile played on her lips. She left the twins sputtering in their rage. Gyak grabbed Ian's hand. How did you do that? He asked. Do what? She asked. The silent transmission, he replied. She feigned ignorance. I don't know what you're talking about. Can I take your pulse? Sure, she replied languidly. That's strange. He was certain she possessed no internal energy. Yet he was certain what she had just done was. He looked at her, noticing a trickle of blood from her nose. Ian, don't tell me you used your primordial chi. Primordial chi, the innate, natural energy one is born with. The reason Ian was able to perform the silent transmission was because it was a vestige of her last efforts in her past life, her struggle to learn martial arts. One day, she did learn how to use primordial chi as internal energy. Gaiak wiped the blood from her nose. This is a side effect of you using silent transmission, isn't it? But primordial chi is a person's lifespan. If you use it all up, you'll die. Ian brushed Gaiak's hand away, still pretending not to know what he was talking about. Why did he figure it out so quickly? She thought. Flushing, she told Gaiak to leave it alone for now, saying she would wipe it herself. He said he'd stop asking questions if she would just stay put, and Ian immediately fell silent. Gaiak said he knew what she was thinking. She was trying to drive a wedge between her aunt and uncle through Beck Myung, wasn't she? Ian glared at him. You're frighteningly perceptive. I need to stay away from you. Gaiak sighed. Don't look at me like that. We're friends, right? I'll keep your secret, she thought. That's exactly why I can't trust you. And so, Gaiak asked her for a favor, for Myung's sake. She looked at him. Fine. He asked shyly if she could write to him every now and then, even when she was at the Nam Gong estate. A few days later, Ian was busy preparing. Ian couldn't wait to see what decision her aunt would make, just as she was leaving her residence. But she couldn't witness it herself as they were all busy preparing for their trip to the Nam Gong estate. Her father took her to the Nam Gong estate, to the all-knowing doctor. He was known as the greatest physician in the world, renowned for his treatment of both external and internal injuries. However, 10 years ago, he swore to never again associate with anyone from Muhaim and secluded himself from the world. Although their destination was the Nam Gong estate, it was likely they were actually going to visit this all-knowing doctor to treat Ian's dantian. In her past life, she had missed this golden opportunity. This time, she wouldn't let it slip away. To minimize the number of people aware of the doctor's existence, they traveled light. Ian, a voice called, and she turned to see Myung approaching. Long time no see, he greeted her. Ian noticed a slight pallor to his face and guessed that Aunt Elan and the twins had indeed been tormenting his family. Myung asked if she was going to see Elder Nam Gong. Yes, she replied, explaining she would meet him halfway. I see. I know Uncle will take good care of you, but still, take care of yourself. Ian had never expected such a farewell. She wondered if everything was going according to plan. Myung then launched into a speech. If you happen to see Elder Nam Gong, I would be truly grateful if you could tell him how deeply ashamed I am for showing him my immature side before. Of course, I'm not forcing you to say this, just requesting it, so please don't misunderstand. Please put in a good word for me. The rest of the sentence went unsaid. I have an ardent, unrequited affection for Elder Nam Gong. If only I could escape this, Ian thought. Myung finally concluded, this is from my father for you. He handed her a silver ingot. A delighted smile spread across her face. I take it back, she thought. This is worth listening to. Accepting the ingot with glee, she replied, of course, I'll be sure to pass it on. The child understood the sweet taste of capitalism. Ian sat in the carriage, gazing out the window. Bored, she decided she couldn't just sit idly in the carriage. That pouch Mr. Wei was so insistent upon. She resolved to finish it before they arrived. Half a day later, the unfinished embroidery lay as far from her as possible. She looked like someone who had died, but was forced to rise and work. She began to question the very existence of the pouch. This useless body. I should have asked Subache for some motion sickness medicine. Her eyes drifted closed, and then she saw her father looking down at her. Father, she called out, what are you doing here? He placed his large hand on her forehead, telling her not to worry and to lie down and rest. She felt as if she were drifting into a pleasant dream. After several days of travel, Ian finally awoke beneath an unfamiliar ceiling. She recalled her father staying by her side, holding her hand and channeling chi into her to restore her strength. Seeing her awake, her father suggested she have dinner. He said he would have the food brought to her room. No, she declined the offer. She wanted to eat downstairs, having been cooped up in the carriage. She craved fresh air. Ian's father carried her downstairs, where they encountered Shim Ji-young of the Nam Gong estate. He inquired after Ian's health, and she cheerfully replied that she was fully recovered. A server asked what they would like to eat, and Ian's father requested something simple, as the child had been unwell. Perhaps some porridge. Ian's brow furrowed. Porridge again. Father, she pleaded, I want dumplings. He replied that it wouldn't be good for her stomach. She fixed him with an innocent, beseeching look. She wanted dumplings. He quickly agreed, gesturing for the waiter to bring a plate of dumplings. When the steaming dish arrived, a genuine smile finally bloomed on Ian's face. The waiter, catching sight of her sword, inquired, Little miss, are you a martial artist? Ian puffed up with pride. Indeed, I am. She's quite formidable, you know. You'll know it when you hear her name. The waiter pressed on. If you're so famous, you must be quite skilled with a sword, right? If so, there's not much to worry about, and you're not traveling alone either. Still, be careful. Several children have gone missing around here lately. Ian felt a surge of relief that she had decided to come downstairs. This case, she remembered, featured in the original story. It was one of the decisive factors that prevented her from receiving treatment from the elusive omniscient doctor in her past life. The waiter continued, "You're only staying one night, so there's not too much to worry about. But I still advise caution. Little miss, did I frighten this young lady?" Ian, ever mischievous, replied, "Not all. Father is here. He'll protect me, won't you, Father?" Ian's father nodded in agreement. A hand pulled a chair back from the table. "It warms my heart to see such a close father-daughter relationship." Elder Nam Gong, settling into the chair beside Ian with his usual arms-crossed posture, said, "Bring me a bowl as well." "Uncle Lee." Ian greeted him cheerfully. Ian's father asked, "Nam Gong, you're here." Elder Nam Gong replied that he was already aware of the situation. No further explanation needed. As the waiter had mentioned, over 40 children had disappeared. If the children of beggars were included, the number was impossible to count. In the past, this had weighed heavily on Ian's father's mind. He couldn't afford to waste a single moment, unsure when the elusive omniscient doctor might depart again. Knowing father, it would be difficult for him to ignore the disappearance of innocent children. Elder Namgung's voice held a note of finality. "Ikong, we can't delay any longer." He urged Ian to go upstairs, promising to have the food sent up. "What? Just shooing me away like that?" No, she had come down to get a grasp of the situation. "Oh, all right. I'm scared to be alone," she whined. This caused Elder Namgung to spray his drink. "Weren't you just saying you weren't afraid?" he asked, incredulous. "No, I'm afraid," she denied. "Kid, at least come up with a decent excuse." Elder Namgung grumbled, wiping his mouth. She tried another tactic. "I wasn't afraid because Father and Uncle Lee were here." Suddenly, a voice called out, "Senior." A man carrying a long spear entered. Ian recognized him as the second son of the AE family, one of the 10 great families renowned for their musical talent. Young-hee, beaming, explained, "Senior, just now, this humble one thought I saw you and wanted to confirm if it was truly you. I never expected to actually encounter you." He bowed to Elder Namgung. "How have you been, Senior?" His eyes then landed on Ian's father, and he jumped in surprise. "Senior Ikong, you're here too. And who is this adorable young lady?" Gesturing towards her, Ikong replied, "She's my daughter." "The daughter." Young-hee crouched down, patting her head enthusiastically. "Ah, so small, so cute. How old are you?" Ian felt her soul almost leave her body from the force of his pats. "She's 6. "What? 6 years old? So young." Elder Namgung interjected, "Are you petting her or tormenting her?" Young-hee huffed indignantly. "Senior, I'm very disappointed in you. Having such a grown-up daughter without a word, when did you even get married?" Ikong's face darkened, and Elder Namgung felt a splitting headache coming on. Ian, her face impassive, thought one thing was for sure. He certainly lacked subtlety. Namgung, he asked him why he came here first. "Have the elders heard of a temple called Sohee Temple?" he inquired. "It's understandable if you haven't. It's neither in Mirin nor Yen. So, it's perfectly normal if you're unfamiliar with it. I only recently learned about it myself. But the children who disappeared from Sohee Temple." He paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. In other words, thanks to Ian's excellent summary, he continued, the Mayong Alliance dispatched the next generation, of which he's part of the first and second groups tasked with finding the missing children. "Did you come alone?" He shook his head. "No. Usually, a 4-person team is deployed for missions. You'll meet the others soon enough. However, Senior Ikong typically works alone." "Wow," Ian breathed, impressed. "My father truly is the best." Young-hee responded. "He can do that because he possesses such strength. He truly is remarkable, isn't he? If I were to recount all of Senior Ikong's accomplishments, we'd be here all night." Namgung scoffed. "What's the point of bringing up ancient history? You're just prattling on about useless things." "What do you mean, useless things?" Young-hee retorted, then abruptly changed the subject. "Have you been to the tavern over there? I had lunch there, but their pork dish." Namgung cut him off. "Are you even listening to me?" Ignoring the question, Young-hee continued his tangent. He told the elders to wait a moment and then vanished. A moment later, he reappeared, holding a skewer of candied strawberries, relieved they were still selling them. Namgung, he was exasperated. He'd been wondering where Young-hee had run off to, only to find him buying that. What do you mean that? Young-hee replied indignantly, offering the strawberries to Ian. She thanked him, and he urged her to enjoy them. Turning back to Nam Gong, he said, Senior, children love these things. You'd regret coming here and not trying these snacks. I have 6 younger siblings. I know that without you telling me. Nam Gong, though annoyed with Young-hee, couldn't argue with that logic. Ian bit into a sugar-coated strawberry, finding it utterly delicious. She offered one to her father. He took a bite, immediately hit with the intense sweetness. Is it too sweet? She asked. It's all right, Ikong replied. Do you want another one? She offered. Both Young-hee and Nam Gong watched the exchange between father and daughter, momentarily stunned. For Young-hee, it was the first time he'd seen this side of Ikong. Nam Gong turned to Young-hee. What about mine? He demanded. Neither of us has had dinner, but there's nothing for me. He added a pointed O, as a thinly veiled threat. I'll bring one back right away, Senior Young-hee exclaimed, dashing off again. Both Ian and her father found his eagerness amusing. Ian held the skewer out to Nam Gong, offering him a taste. He looked at it for a moment, then finally took a bite. Sweet, he admitted. That's the sweet and sour of it, she replied cheerfully. Just then, Young-hee came running back, another skewer of strawberries in hand. He presented it to Nam Gong, with a flourish. To his surprise, Nam Gong, told him to eat it himself. They finally reached their destination. Young-hee gestured toward the building. That's it, the Gwangsong sect. We've already arranged accommodations. He knocked, and the door flew open, revealing an irritated voice. Senior where have you been? It was Park Chan, a disciple of the Gwangsong sect. He stopped abruptly when he noticed the others behind Young-hee. Is that the vice patriarch? He asked, turning back to Young-hee. I apologize. I can't just let them in. They are seniors from the Myong Alliance, here to help. I'll explain the details later. Please inform the vice patriarch that we will be waiting at Chongseo Hall. Someone grabbed Junggi's ear, demanding loudly, where have you been? Siona and Haeyang have been looking all over for you. Young-hee yelped. Ow, that hurts. But I told them I was going out. Told them what? Nobody knew where you were going. The person shouted. After a moment of silence, Young-hee asked, didn't I tell them? Did you? The person retorted, continuing to tug on his ear. He shrieked, why? Wait, it hurts. Look behind me. He spun around, finding them standing there. You're the same as always. Tang Swyong, the leader of the Mirin League's dispatch mission, addressed the vice patriarch of his own clan and Zhao Walker. I never expected Master Bakery and Master Nam Gong to come personally. I'm deeply grateful. The patriarch is unwell, so I've come to greet you in his stead. Please forgive us. Nam Gong greeted them. I hope the patriarch recovers soon, and Juk explained. The Zone clan was desperate to investigate the disappearances, but with their elder bedridden, they couldn't act rashly and were grateful for the 2 masters' assistance. Ikong and Nam Gong asked Zhao Walker for a briefing, which he readily agreed to. At first, only 1 or 2 young beggars went missing, but beggars disappearing and reappearing is a common occurrence, so everyone assumed they had either died or moved on to beg elsewhere. It wasn't until people finally realized something was wrong and started asking around that they discovered young children were also vanishing. It's been a year now, and if you include the beggars and newborns, over 50 children have disappeared in total. Families with children now lock their doors at sunset, refusing to let them out under any circumstances. But even with such strict parental supervision, it's still happening. The government has also helplessly told them not to make a fuss over a few missing children, which is why they finally sought help from the Mirin League. Young-hee entered the room, announcing the arrival of the other team members. 2 individuals walked in, cheerfully greeting everyone. They were Pyo Sienriol of Hengji Mountain and Ma Haeyong of Big City. Song Yong exclaimed excitedly, "It's an honor to meet you." Ikong introduced his daughter, Ian, to the new faces, while Nam Gong reflected that this was his first time meeting them. Ian greeted everyone politely. Haeyong was surprised to hear daughter, while Song Yong blushed. Tang Swyong explained that this was Song Yong's debut as a Hengji Mountain disciple, and his first mission. Ikong commented, everyone has a first mission, Song Yong. Just do as you've been taught. Even if something unexpected happens, he can rely on Tang Swyong. Zhao Walker was relieved to hear this. having not expected the Mirren League to take the matter so seriously when he requested help. Ian observed her father, sensing he was seriously contemplating whether to help. "There's been a misunderstanding," Nam Gong said. "We weren't sent by the Mirren League. We just happened to be passing through on our way to our destination. We ran into Young Hai and asked if he needed any assistance. Frankly, seeing the current state of the investigation, don't you think the youngsters can handle this well enough on their own?" Nam Gong asked Ikong. "Indeed," Ikong replied. "We should take our leave. My daughter isn't feeling well, and we're on our way to get her treatment. We can't delay any longer. Please excuse us." Ian thought to herself, it always ends up like this. Her father had always had his principles, even with her in the past. "So Miss Bakery isn't well." "We were completely unaware," Tang Swyong said. "It's all right. This is our duty." "We've troubled you," Zhao Walker replied. "When a child is ill, nothing is more important to a parent. This isn't something the two of you should worry about. It's fine." Ikong thanked them for their understanding, but Song Yong still pleaded, "Could you at least stay for a day and offer some guidance?" As a newcomer, he had much to learn. Young Hai asked, "Why have you all gone to such lengths to come here? We should be thanking you for coming. It's truly wonderful that you're here. Otherwise, it would seem as though you were forced to come." He let out a hearty laugh, adding, "Well, you can repay us later. Your chance to repay your debt won't come easily." Ian's father indicated they should leave, and just as the two adults stood up, Ian clutched her father's robes. "She's all right," she said. "Please solve this case. We can't just leave. The lives of the younger generation here are in danger. This wasn't an ordinary disappearance case from the beginning. This is a murder case perpetrated by evil spirits." Nam Gong asked in surprise, "Hey, Young-hee, haven't you been listening to a word we've said?" "And Juke's father, please. Just this once listen to me." Zhao Walker raised his hand, suggesting they at least hear Ian out. Ian recalled her past life, where Zhao Walker had died in this case. At his memorial service, people had talked about his passing. They had had such high hopes for him, but he had gotten caught up in this case. The remaining 4 members, excluding Tang Swyong, were unable to wield their swords again. Unfortunately, Nam Gong had intervened too late. Though he saved them, the culprit escaped. Someone else sighed, "What a pity." This case was a side story instigated by the evil villain under the guise of healing, a mere tool to showcase the ominous connection to the villain, a connection that had continued since the generation of the protagonist's parents. Ian explained, "I heard that father never turned a blind eye to those in need, not once in his entire life. I've always wanted to be like him. But if we ignore those struggling because our own matters are more urgent, then I won't be able to say I want to follow in his footsteps in the future." To solve this case, Nam Gong ultimately deviated from his path, even after seeing the sign of the physician of all creation, whose services her father had already been denied. Her father, burdened by the guilt of not being able to save them, was consumed by the anguish of not being able to bring Nam Gong back. It was then that they lost track of the physician of all creation once more. Just this once, only this once. She had always seen the regret etched on her father's face for ignoring the call of his heart. Finding the physician of all creation was important, Ian thought, but in this life, she didn't want her father to feel that regret. Nam Gong grumbled, "This is frustrating. Ikong, you should at least say something. She's your daughter, after all." Ikong said with emotion, "I know I shouldn't, for your sake, but I'm happy for you." Nam Gong complained, "I don't want to see any more of this. Don't you two regret this later." With that, he stormed off. Later that night, Ian was sleeping when she slowly opened her eyes. For some reason, it was incredibly noisy outside. She got up and went outside to see what the commotion was about. Her father was already outside, observing the chaotic scene. She stood beside him and asked what was happening. He told her to mind her own business and go back to sleep, but she wanted to say something. Just then, she heard 2 people weeping over the death of Bok Chang-un. They couldn't believe he was dead. Master Nam Gong of the Mirren League and the seniors haven't even investigated this vice-patriarch yet, so please calm down. Someone thought Bok Chang-un was the most skilled among us. Another person said, "You're saying a disciple of the Zone clan is dead. It hasn't even been half a day." Ian thought, the progression of this case wasn't this fast in the past. This is strange. What changed? Her father patted her head gently. "Ian, go back inside." Ian understood. It must be because her father and Nam Gong decided to stay. That was the change. "Father, "Where's Nangong Wenju?" Tang Suing asked anxiously, her voice echoing through the forest. A man lay dead before them, eyes wide open in a frozen stare. With a gentle hand, she closed his lids. The wound, she observed, was a single fatal blow. It wasn't a clean cut like a sword wound, nor the blunt force trauma of a bludgeon. Something else entirely. It's like he didn't even have time to draw his sword. He was caught completely off guard, she murmured, the implications chilling. "A sneak attack," Song Lai concluded grimly. Nangongwan disagreed. "It looks more like a frontal assault. Strange for a martial artist to die without even drawing their blade in a face-to-face encounter." Zhao Anwu cried out, his gaze sweeping the surrounding area. "There are no other tracks, nothing out of the ordinary." Ingshi added, "It's just a normal forest." Haiheng nodded in agreement with Ingshi. "An ordinary forest indeed." Someone suggested that because it's nighttime, we might not be able to see much. But for now, it seems he came here alone, without his companion's knowledge, and with no apparent reason. Nangongwan analyzed, pacing slowly. He came to this clearing, alone, and was killed in a frontal assault without putting up a fight. It points to someone he knew, she concluded, her brow furrowing. Suddenly, her eyes widened. "I've seen this kind of wound before." "Where?" Tang Suing pressed, her voice sharp with concern. "I'm certain I've seen something similar." In a flash of movement, Nangongwan lunged towards Tang Suing, anticipating an unseen attack. "Suing back," she shouted, shoving Tang Suing aside and deflecting a blow with her unsheathed sword. Both figures stumbled back, poised to strike again. "Deputy clan leader." Zheng Hai gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. The deputy clan leader and Nangongwan exchanged a flurry of blows before separating. Nangongwan staggered back to Tang Suing's side, a trickle of blood staining her lips. The deputy clan leader, seemingly unharmed, settled back into a fighting stance. "Deputy clan leader, what are you doing?" Tang Suing cried out, her voice laced with confusion and fear. I can't use my inner energy," Zheng Hai stammered, his face pale. Haiheng echoed his words, "Me neither." Panic flared in Tang Suing's eyes. "Nangongwan, can you?" she asked urgently. Nangongwan coughed, another spatter of blood appearing. "It's dispersing power poison." When Suing whispered, her mind racing. The deputy clan leader laughed, a cruel, chilling sound. "Didn't each of you enjoy a refreshing cup of water? You despicable bastard." Tang Suing spat, her voice shaking with rage. I wouldn't expect such words from a Tang, known for their own expertise in poisons." The deputy clan leader sneered, unfazed by their encirclement. He shifted his stance, preparing for his next attack. Song Lai tensed, bracing himself. The deputy clan leader's gaze flicked to Song Lai, assessing him as the weakest link. With a burst of speed, he lunged, his sword a blur of motion. Though Song Lai managed to parry the blow, he was sent reeling backward, wounded. Tang Suing flung a throwing knife, forcing the deputy clan leader to dodge and creating distance between him and Song Lai. This is why the Tang needed to be dealt with first, the deputy clan leader thought grimly. He hadn't even risked using the poison on her, fearing her detection. Haiheng and Zheng Shi charged, their weapons raised, hoping to land a blow. The deputy clan leader merely scoffed. Too weak, he unleashed a wave of force, sending them flying. Zheng Shi and Haiheng crashed to the ground, blood welling in their mouths. Rage surged through Tang Suing as she watched her comrades fall. Swiong hurled daggers at the deputy clan leader, shouting, "You bastards." The deputy clan leader effortlessly dodged every strike, much to Swiong's astonishment. The ground beneath the deputy clan leader's feet buckled under the force of his internal energy as he launched himself towards Swiong and Nam Gong with terrifying speed. "This is the end," someone declared triumphantly. Panic flickered in Swiong's eyes. How could she possibly defend against such an onslaught? Suddenly, a flash of white light erupted before her, leaving a trail of shimmering light and swirling dust. The white streak hurtled towards the deputy clan leader. Ikong's sword clashed against the deputy clan leader's bare hand, the force of the impact sending both men staggering back. The resulting blast of wind momentarily obscured Swiong's vision. When she could see again, it was as if a beacon of hope had been lit. Ikong landed back in front of Swiong, his sword leveled at their enemy. Relief washed over her at the sight of the elder swordsman. "Elder Ikong." she cried. What's the situation? Ikong asked, scattering chi poison. Nam Gong rasped. Everyone except Tang Suiyong had succumbed to the poison. The deputy clan leader, his composure momentarily shaken, demanded to know what Ikong was doing there. That's my question, Ikong retorted. I distinctly remember cleaving your face in two. Seems the heavens weren't on my side that day. It's certainly a surprise to see you like this, he added, his voice laced with disdain. Nam Gong suddenly exclaimed, Thousand Ghost Mask. I knew I recognized you. The masked figure let out a chilling chuckle. He cackled, his hand reaching up to rip the mask from his face. So glad you remember me, White Day Ikong. 10 years ago, Thousand Ghost Mask was the scourge of Guizhou, kidnapping countless children. He roamed his hidden forest, using bizarre, unheard-of martial arts to cripple or kill anyone who dared to challenge him. In that desperate hour, a hero emerged, a rising star, White Day Ikong. 10 years ago, a mere 20 years old, you faced that infamous fiend and dealt him a mortal wound, forcing him to flee. Zheng Hai, propped up by Hai Hung, struggled to speak. He survived that. Suiyong turned to Ikong. Elder Ikong, can you cure Yi's poison? I can, he replied, but the process requires focused meditation. Ikong reassured her, don't worry about me. Suiyong explained, depending on the severity of the poisoning, it shouldn't take more than the time it takes to eat a meal, which for reference, she added, is about 30 minutes. Ikong instructed Suiyong to focus on healing Nam Gong. Thousand Ghost Mask sneered. Pointing at Ikong, he taunted, you think you can meditate now, with me standing right here? So you're standing in front of me now, Ikong, but you're about to pull some low-level breathing trick? Hai Hung and Zheng Hai positioned themselves protectively on either side of Suiyong and Nam Gong. Thousand Ghost Mask roared. You're all so confident, aren't you? He lunged at Ikong, initiating the first strike. Ikong's sword moved with deceptive grace, leaving a blur of afterimages as he parried the attack. The speed of Thousand Ghost Mask's assault was astonishing, even to Zheng Hai. He watched the battle unfold, a clash of titans, barely able to believe that Elder Ikong had completely blocked that attack. And he noticed something else. Amidst the flurry of blows, the elder swordsman was steadily maneuvering Thousand Ghost Mask in a specific direction. Frustration gnawed at Thousand Ghost Mask. He couldn't gain any ground against Ikong in the open. He had no choice but to retreat towards the denser trees, attempting to lure Ikong in a terrain more favorable to his own fighting style. Noticing his retreat, Ikong pursued Thousand Ghost Mask, refusing to let him out of her sight. When the tension finally eased, Zheng Hai coughed up another mouthful of blood and asked, Where's Suiyong? Hai Hung, worried about Zheng Hai's condition, replied that she didn't know. Suiyong had disappeared at some point, but she believed he would return with reinforcements. She noticed that everyone's internal injuries were far more severe than she had initially thought. A silent prayer formed in her mind. Please, someone, help us. In the forest, Ikong moved cautiously, ever vigilant for Thousand Ghost Mask. There was no sign of him. She suspected he was hidden amongst the branches, looking down on her, concealing his presence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When he thought he found his opening, he dropped down to attack, but Ikong, with her acute hearing, detected the rustle of leaves the instant he moved. Thus, Ikong easily parried the blow. Thousand Ghost Mask's attack failed, and he retreated once more. He used a peculiar technique, moving with uncanny speed, almost as if he were melting into the very surroundings. He taunted Ikong. Speaking of which, I heard something interesting from the Taoist of Nanshan. I heard your daughter is ill. A simpleton, isn't she? Ikong cleaved a nearby tree in two with her sword, but Thousand Ghost Mask wasn't there. He mocked her failed strike, his voice dripping with malice. A cripple from a prestigious martial arts family, with a destroyed Dantian, putting on a noble act. I'm sure many people resent you for what you've done. I can't believe she's a cripple who can't even cultivate, The voice seemed to come from all directions. Inaction would be futile. So, Ikong closed her eyes and focused. She concentrated, listening intently, sensing the energy and sound around her. When she felt the impending attack, she raised her sword and blocked it. The two engaged in a fierce exchange of blows, evenly matched. Even amidst the furious clash of steel, Thousand Ghost Mask continued his taunts. Ikong, aren't you curious? How many more days can your daughter survive in the capital? Hearing this, Ikong's eyes flickered, her movements momentarily faltering. His chance had finally come. Thousand Ghost Mask, through his cruel taunts, had disrupted the flow of Ikong's sword chi. A golden opportunity. He lunged forward, aiming a blow directly at Ikong's neck. Shouting die, just as he thought his blade had connected. Ikong seemed to fall backward, but then, in a swift motion, she sprang upwards, clutching her neck, her agile reflexes allowing her to leap back just in time, narrowly avoiding the fatal strike. Damn it, a little deeper, and I would have killed her. Thousand Ghost Mask cursed. Just then, he sensed an attack coming from behind. Nam Gong leaped into the fray, sword aimed at Thousand Ghost Mask, but he sprang forward, dodging the attack and creating distance. He questioned how Nam Gong had recovered so quickly. Nam Gong shouted, Ikong. Then, Ikong attacked Thousand Ghost Mask from her position. Thousand Ghost Mask, preoccupied with Nam Gong, momentarily forgot that Ikong could also attack him. The tip of Ikong's sword grazed his waist, blood spurting from the wound. Ikong then touched her own neck, confirming that she wasn't bleeding. Trapped between Ikong and Nam Gong, Thousand Ghost Mask had no choice but to flee. He leaped upwards, the best escape route available, using the trees as stepping stones to escape the two, his mind racing. It's difficult for Nam Gong to fight two people at once. Elder Ikong, are you all right? Nam Gong asked. Ikong urged him to pursue Thousand Ghost Mask, but it seemed the villain had no choice but to retreat. Zheng Hai mused. It's as if Elder Ikong knew something beforehand, arriving here so quickly. He sensed a benevolent energy and, overjoyed, lifted Swayong like a doll. It must be from little Swayong. Calm down, Senior Zheng Hai. Hai Heng interjected. Swayong thought, this is what they mean by reaping what you sow. Everything she had done was for her father and Master Wan. She had intended to stay longer, but it was she who had discovered the danger facing Master Wan and his group. She had ultimately used a trump card every child uses in such a situation. Even now, it's a miracle that she learned of our predicament through a dream and brought a doctor and others to help us. Zheng Hai replied, patting Swayong's head. If it weren't for Swayong, he might have died helplessly. That's right, Swayong thought. I was so desperate back then, lying on the floor pretending to have a nightmare. She had wailed to her father, if you don't go see Master Wan, I'll keep crying. Swayong blushed, covering her face in shame. It was embarrassing even to remember. But thanks to that, everyone had survived. How do you think Songreal is doing? Tang Swayong asked. Hopefully, he hasn't run in 1,000 Ghost Mask, Hai Hung replied. I hope so too, Swayong thought, anxious. I can't reveal his whereabouts. Even in the novel, he only plays the role of a useless runaway. The door slid open. A servant entered, announcing the return of Lord Baekri. Father's back, Swayong exclaimed, delighted. It was her father and Shun, Nam Gong Yi's assistant, who entered, joy radiating from her face. Swayong rushed to greet her father, but he stopped her with a hand to her forehead. You're covered in dust, her father said. She grumbled her displeasure, though she didn't really mind. Tang Swayong welcomed the seniors back and inquired about Master Wan. Was there a problem? Master Nam Gong relentlessly pursued 1,000 Ghost Mask, and we found his base, Assistant Shun replied. The answer startled Tang Swayong. You finally found the base. What about the missing children? Swayong felt a pang of sorrow at the news, thinking it was likely they were all dead. Suddenly, Assistant Shun said, there's a survivor. What? A survivor. A small, dark-haired boy emerged from behind Assistant Shun. There weren't any survivors in the previous life, Swayong thought. Why is my heart pounding so fast? Elder Ikong suddenly asked Swayong, what are you holding? The question broke her train of thought. Oh, these are snacks Brother Zheng Hai brought. I thought we could eat them together since you're back. Would you like some? She offered the box of snacks to her father. He declined. Hey, do you want to eat some too? Swayong asked the surviving boy. It's wonderful there's a survivor. I heard these are snacks from a famous place. Have one, Swayong said, placing a snack in his hand. He must be traumatized, she thought. I should give him something tasty and treat him well. My name is Baekri Swayong. She introduced herself. What's your name? She asked. But why did she feel so uneasy? Glancing up at her father, Swayong noticed the bandage around his neck. It was the first time she had seen her father injured. Then she thought of her own neck and looked back at the surviving boy. He slowly replied, Yo-Yo. she suddenly felt an itch on her neck. In the novel, Myung-eun's true nature wasn't revealed until much later. He should be at the House of Evil, the prison where the Martial Arts Alliance held serious criminals. So why was the boy, who should be there, here now? Ikong eavesdropped from behind the door, listening to the adult conversation. How is he doing now? Swyong asked. A staff member replied. He was very quiet during his bath. Even when I asked him where his home was, he didn't respond. He didn't ask any questions either. Is that so? Then what should we do? Swyong inquired. Assistant Shun continued, but he has quite a few scars on his body, and if you add the recent ones to the old ones, the number is quite significant. Assistant Shun called out, Who's there? Ikong grumbled. Eavesdropping the martial arts world is really too difficult. Having no other choice, Ikong emerged from the side, smiling. It's me. I have to act innocent, you know? Swyong, finding her endearing, asked, What are you doing here? Feigning innocence, like a child who knew nothing, Ikong replied. I came to see the child father brought back, but it seems you're having a serious conversation. Assistant Shun assumed Ikong was looking for a playmate. Ikong showed the adults a small box. I saw he was injured earlier, so I bought some ointment. The adults were charmed by her sweetness. Ikong asked if she could deliver the ointment to him herself. The adults conferred amongst themselves. Swyong said, Since they're around the same age, perhaps the boy will open up to Ikong more easily. From what we've heard, he's very well behaved, and Ikong seems a little lonely on her own. Assistant Shun added that they could keep watch outside the door, and it should be all right. Swyong returned to Ikong and told her, If you don't like the child, don't force yourself to talk to him. You can come out. Okay, she replied. Phew. She'd made it inside, but her heart was still pounding. Ikong patted her chest and rubbed her neck, reassuring herself. It's okay, you can do this. Nothing has happened yet. If she didn't want history to repeat itself, she had to find out why. Why was Yi Yao here? Looking at his profile, she was stunned. Why did he look so familiar, yet she hadn't recognized him immediately? She resolved to say something, anything. The boy glanced at her and touched a flower, and it instantly withered, losing all life. The forbidden demonic breathing technique. A technique that forcibly extracts the vital energy of others and converts it into one's own internal power. The name sent shivers down the spines of righteous martial artists. You, he exclaimed. Ikong slowly walked forward. Stop. This technique, does father know you can do this? It's because of this technique that Yi Yao, as Thousand Ghost Mask's only survivor, couldn't be protected and was locked up in the House of Evil. He knows. What about the others? Ikong asked. The others don't know, the boy replied. Ikong guessed this was likely true. If the others knew, she wouldn't have been allowed to be alone in the same room with him, let alone protect him. He would have been sent directly to the Martial Arts Alliance. He asked, Aren't you here to kill me? She asked, shocked, why she would kill him. He replied that Thousand Ghost Mask had told him so in her previous life. Yi Yao had an unusual obsession with her, or more accurately, with Baekri's daughter. If Thousand Ghost Mask had taught Yi Yao the forbidden demonic breathing technique, then why would he teach Yi Yao this technique? Ikong, why aren't you waiting patiently instead of causing trouble here? I told Assistant Shun not to let anyone in. How did you? Before he could finish, he noticed the withered flower in the vase. He frowned in displeasure. If my daughter hadn't seen you do this, you would have been apprehended already. If you don't believe me, I won't stop you from paying the price for your transgression. That might not be a bad thing either. Afterward, Ikong's father embraced her. He led her back to the room, settled her down, and explained that if Yi Yao was willing to refrain from using demonic techniques, he would consider adopting the boy. Ikong had much to say about the risks of harboring Yi Yao, for instance, but her father told her, This is all my fault. Because I didn't completely eradicate the Thousand Ghost Mask in the past, I should bear this responsibility. I don't want you to be burdened with shame. Faced with such heartfelt words, how could she refuse? The road to the learned doctor's residence was treacherous. The heavy rain started and stopped intermittently, and the muddy track caused the carriage wheels to get stuck several times, even coming off entirely by the time they reached their destination. Another matter awaited them. Have you found them all? Nam Gong inquired. Yes, I've located all the bodies in the vicinity. 13 in total, all with stab wounds, Assistant Shin replied. The area around Boe village is secure now. Should we expand the search perimeter? Shin asked. Nam Gong responded, yes, widen it a bit more. Their primary objective was to ascertain whether the learned doctor was still alive. Their secondary objective concerned Ikong. She counted on her fingers There were 5 children in Boe village. Now, 1 adult body and 1 child's body were missing. Although she hadn't seen the faces of all the corpses, judging by the circumstances, it was highly probable that the learned doctor and the missing child were still alive. Ikong tapped her head. At least, she hoped so. Ikong, her father called. Are you all right? Father, I'm fine. I don't know if it's this place, but can I go for a walk? Ikong needed to check the learned doctor's former house. Her father crouched down, meeting her gaze. All right, but don't wander too far. Okay, she replied cheerfully. As she walked around the area, she saw damaged houses and collapsed buildings, but noticed Yao trailing behind her. It seemed he wouldn't stop following her. Ikong thought it was like a mother duck and her newly hatched ducklings. There used to be a child here, a servant taken in by the learned doctor. He was mute and had lost his entire family in a landslide, perhaps because he had been saved by the doctor. The child's affections were unusually strong. Looking around, Ikong recalled hearing that he had been around here when the landslide hit. She should have paid more attention to the details back then. Suddenly, Yao called out to her. Are you looking for this? It's here. He stood beside a large tree. She walked over and asked him what he meant by here. Yao replied, the gap between the roots. Although the hole is quite small, Ikong remarked. They peered into the crevice and discovered a small boy lying within the tangle of roots. Father, Ikong cried out. Ikong's father checked the child's forehead for a fever. Ikong asked her father how the child was. He replied, he has a high fever and shows signs of dehydration. It looks like he's been unattended for over a day. But he said they needed to hurry back to the village. No, that's no use. There's no doctor in the nearby villages, she reminded him. All right, Ikong's father finally remembered. Then they could only question the child about the learned doctor and those who attacked the village. Ikong mentioned that she had noticed some medicinal herbs remaining amongst the ruins of the burned houses. She would go and see if any were usable. Her father asked if she could identify them. Ikong turned to her father and smiled. Of course, if you count all the medicine you've given me, I could practically open my own clinic. He could only look at her, touched by her cheerful demeanor. When Ikong returned with the herbs, she saw Yao tending to the sick child. He seemed quite familiar with caring for the injured. She suddenly recalled, oh, that's right, Ikong just remembered. They would need to ask the child about the all-knowing doctor and the attackers of the village, as Ian had suggested earlier. As she looked around, she spotted some herbs among the charred remains of the house. She decided to check if there were any useful medicinal herbs. Her father asked if she could identify them. Ian turned to him with a laugh, saying, of course, if I had the same amount of medicine you've given me. At this point, I could probably open my own clinic, couldn't I? Ian said, smiling. He could only stare at her, amazed by how much she had blossomed. Ian then returned with the medicine and found Yale. Yale was attending to the sick child, looking as though he was experienced with treating injuries. She asked where her father was, and Yi Yao replied that he had some things to bring. Sitting on the edge of the porch, Ikong touched her neck, a gesture of reassurance. She still wasn't sure how to face Yi Yao. Even if she tried to forget the past, to embrace the idea of treating him kindly, the sight of his face brought it all back, raw and immediate. She remarked that he seemed familiar with caring for the sick. He answered that his mother had often been ill. You had a mother. Ikong blurted out, surprised, then immediately regretted the foolish question. Even antagonists, especially ones as pivotal as Yao seemed to be, could have mothers. Embarrassed, she confessed, I didn't. You didn't have a mother? He asked. No, Ikong confirmed. She was gone before I had any memories of her. You have your father, Yi Yao pointed out. Ikong smiled. Perhaps Yi Yao was a better person than she had given him credit for. Where's your mother now? She inquired. She's passed away, he replied. At that moment, perhaps feeling a little too complacent about fate, Ikong sensed a stirring behind her. Turning to check on the boy they had found, Ikong saw that he was awake, slowly regaining consciousness. We found you lying by the roots of an old tree, she told him excitedly. The boy grasped her arm, struggling to speak. He seemed to have aphasia. Only disjointed words escaped him, but the panic in his eyes suggested he was desperate to know about someone else. Unable to understand, Ikong asked him what was wrong and if he could stand. Suddenly, they felt the ground tremble. Ikong looked up, wondering what was happening. A landslide. Massive rocks tumbled down the mountain, hurtling towards them. Ikong, Yi Yao, and the small boy scrambled away, dodging the falling debris. As she watched the boulders crash down, Ikong thought, if she survived this, surely her dantian could be healed too. Instinctively, she shoved the small boy out of the path of a falling rock. Sometime later, Ikong, lying prone, began to regain consciousness. It took a moment for the precariousness of her situation to register. Sitting up, noticing a glimmer of light, she thought, am I alive? She tried to move, but pain shot through her body. How could this be? She wondered. I finally found the learned doctor's place, but he's not here. Just when I thought I'd found a child who might be a clue, a landslide. It's like the heavens themselves don't want my Dantian healed. Supporting herself against the wall, Ikong pushed herself forward. No, Ikong, she thought, don't think negatively now. Focus on surviving. Feeling her way along the wall, she noticed it resonated with a hollow sound. The walls and floor were smooth, as if artificially constructed. An artificial cave in a place like this. She reasoned that it must have saved her life, but she still had no idea where she was. Ahead, she saw what looked like a crack of light beneath a door. Entering the room, she gasped. What was this? A medicine storehouse. Neatly arranged jars, vials, books, anatomical charts, and supplies filled the space. Is this the learned doctor's secret storehouse? She wondered. Ikon picked up a box and opened it. Circulation pills. She could hardly believe it. The learned doctor had these. This was incredible. She wanted to give them all to her father. Sighing, she leaned against a crate to rest. But that would only be possible if she could find a way out of this hidden chamber. Finding it increasingly difficult to move, she decided to look around for some medicine to take. But these were all related to chi, so they weren't suitable for her. Ikon closed her eyes, thinking. She couldn't get out from inside the room. What should she do now? Suddenly, she heard a knocking sound. Her eyes flew open, and she stood up. It must be Father looking for me. Yes, who else would knock on the wall like this? A renewed sense of hope flickered within her. She paced the room, searching for a way out. Ikong approached a wooden shelf built into the wall. She wondered what was behind it. Glancing around, she noticed dust motes drifting in a particular direction. She went to a table and picked up a box. Ikong began to fiddle with it, hoping she was doing the right thing. After manipulating the box, the shelf door opened automatically. Excitement flared, quickly extinguished by the sight that greeted her. Blood everywhere. Behind the door sat a figure drenched in blood. The horrific sight made her legs weaken, and she stumbled back, trembling with fear. A corpse, but the fingers were tapping. No, a living person. The injured person spoke. Don't be afraid. It was me calling you. Since it wasn't a corpse, shouldn't she do something? She asked, are you all right? She stood and began to pace frantically. Treatment? No, I'll get some medicine. The gravely injured person stopped her. No need, Ikong. Hearing her name, she stopped and turned back to the injured figure. What? How do you know my name? The injured person replied. How could I not know when you so desperately sought me out? Yes, so your chi meridians are severed. A jolt of realization shot through Ikong. This was the learned doctor. The heavy stench of blood reached her nose, and she knew his time was short. Of that, she was certain. The learned doctor asked what happened to the demonic man above. Just as she was considering how best to phrase it, the learned doctor urged her to tell the truth. She answered succinctly, everyone died. Burned to death. I see, he replied. Ikong added, one person lived. Before the landslide completely buried everything. I saw Father pull the child, Suno, away. Ikong told the doctor, that child should have survived. If you speak of your father, Ikong, the learned doctor inquired, I have also heard of his character and abilities. If so, Ikong stated gravely, it is indeed so. The learned doctor asked, why would such an exceptional man save another child instead of you? Ikong stammered, that wasn't because of father's abilities. Ikong recounted the final moments before she fell into the hidden chamber. She had pushed both children towards her father. The learned doctor asked, you push them. She said, father only has 2 hands. He asked, so you push your father to save 2 children, and then you were swept away by the landslide. Ikong replied sadly, rather than saving them. It was more like making a choice. The learned doctor said, isn't it the same thing? But if I hadn't done that, then while holding me, father would have had to choose between the 2 children. Father is a righteous man and would never refuse someone in need. I couldn't let father make such a difficult decision. Stunned by Ikong's actions, the doctor asked urgently, are you saying you were willing to die? He hadn't finished speaking before he began to cough, the words having agitated him. Senior, Ikong cried out in concern. The learned doctor's gaze grew unfocused. Senior, how do we get out of here? She asked. The learned doctor murmured, righteous people, though they may be deceitful in the end. A bewildered Ikong cried out again, Senior. The learned doctor gripped her shoulder and asked, you said you wanted to repair your Dantian. Yes, time is running out, so I'll give this to you. A yellow light flickered in the learned doctor's pupils, startling Ikong. How you use it, the doctor continued, is up up to you?" Above the landslide, sunlight streamed down. "It's been 2 months," one of the diggers said, leaning on his shovel to rest, his hair cropped close. "There's no way she's still alive. It's time to give up. Young Master Bailey should understand that." Another man, his hair tied back in a topknot, wiped the sweat from his brow. "Don't you think he at least wants to recover her body? You think, even if he knew something this terrible would happen, he could just leave his child like this?" The man with the close-cropped hair replied, "Come to think of it, he really should recover her body. If a child is just buried in a place like this, she can't properly enter nirvana." The man with the top knot said, "Look over there," pointing into the distance. The other man followed his gaze. "What? He's gone back in again. That kid's been getting in the way of the search." "No," the other man said, "Look closely at the kid's back. He seems to be carrying something." Sometime later, Ikong's eyes were bandaged, a physician and servant Shun attending to her. The physician asked how her eyes felt, and she replied that they were a little better. "What exactly happened to Mrs. Eyes?" Servant Shun inquired. The physician admitted he wasn't entirely sure. Perhaps it was from being in the darkness for so long, but he couldn't say for certain. "You're not sure?" Servant Shun pressed. "If it were from lack of sunlight," the physician explained, "her eyes should improve with time. But that doesn't seem to be the case. If it's permanent damage, then it might never heal." "Permanent?" Servant Shun cried out, her voice laced with anxiety. "It could be," the physician hedged, "or it could not be." "Wait, physician," Servant Shun exclaimed. Ikong offered a strained smile. "What can I do? It's not an illness, so there's no way to treat it." From that day forward, she possessed two kinds of sight: the ordinary vision she had always known, and another composed entirely of light. Tears began to well in her eyes. Ikong wiped them away, thinking, this is how it's always been for me. Ever since I emerged from underground, I haven't been able to open my eyes freely. Trapped for 2 months in the learned doctor's hidden chamber, caught in a natural disaster, and now this, you must be anxious." Servant Shun, alarmed by Ikong's condition, suggested, "Miss, let's go to the Nam Gong estate." Ikong, eyes closed, tilted her head towards Servant Shun's voice. She thought, the Nam Gong estate. Both Master Bailey and Master Nam Gong have returned to their respective families to request aid, so it will take some time for news to reach them there. Servant Shun wanted to reassure Ikong that they hadn't abandoned her. "So, if you head to the Nam Gong estate first and recuperate under the care of the physicians there." The door clicked open, and Ikong knew it was Yi Yao. She remembered then. Why was he still here? She recalled the moment she was swept away by the landslide, buried beneath the earth. Her father's frantic cries echoed in her memory. "Ikong. We must save Ikong. Even if I have to call upon everyone from the main family. We must go now. No, I will go and request aid myself." In a situation like that, how could Master Bailey possibly have the mind to care for Yi Yao? Servant Shun wondered aloud. "Master Bailey entrusted Yi Yao to my care." Oh, Ikong finally understood. Servant Shun told Ikong that he would write to inform both masters and urge her to rest. As Servant Shun left, leaving Ikong alone with Yi Yao, an awkward silence settled between them. She thought of her father, the worry that must be consuming him. He needed to know she was alive, and soon. Yi Yao gazed at Ikong, a complex mix of emotions swirling within him. He remembered the moment she pushed him away. She was pushed towards her father, who turned to see Ikong swept away by the landslide. The last image he held onto before she disappeared was the contented smile on her face. As if she didn't care about her safety, her life at all, he asked, "Why did you save me?" Ikong replied, "Is he talking about the landslide?" Yi Yao's words, "You don't like me," hung in the air, a sudden weight in her chest. She should have denied it, but instead, she answered, "Because human life is precious." "My life isn't precious," Yi Yao countered. She noticed his expression then. It was strangely calm, as if he were stating a simple truth and was content with it. "Hey, come here," Ikong called out. Yi Yao approached, confused. "Closer," she urged, a little closer. When he finally leaned down, she reached out, her fingers tracing the line of his face, settling on his forehead. Then she flicked him. Yi Yao recoiled, startled by the unexpected gesture, a clear "Why did you do that?" written across his features. The expression, inexplicably, angered her. "I know that didn't hurt," she exclaimed. "I'm not trying to take credit for saving your life, but are you really going to spout such nonsense in front of someone who just came back from the brink of death? Are you not happy to be alive?" Still fuming, she continued, "Just talking about this makes me angry again. Come here, let me hit you again." Yi Yao, hands raised protectively over his head, approached with a bowed head, guilt evident in his posture. "Are you really coming closer again?" she demanded. Exasperated by the obedience of the man who had killed her in her past life, she declared, "Then don't blame me. Take this." Yi Yao let out a small as she flicked him again. Kong rubbed her head, vexed that she hadn't realized he felt this way. "Because you're giving me a headache?" Kong huffed, arms crossed. "I can't take my medicine now. I'll take it later." Her attitude left Yi Yao floundering. Unsure how to comfort her, he simply said, "All right, take it later." Kong, catching sight of his awkwardness, thought how different he was from Yi Yao in her memories. No wonder she had a headache. Just as things had calmed between Kong and Yi Yao, they heard a commotion outside. "What's all that noise?" Kong asked. Yi Yao led her out to see what was happening. A guard was yelling at someone. "How can I just let you in? You look suspicious, and you're incredibly impudent." Another guard said, "Forget it. It's like talking to a wall. Just throw him out." Kneeling on the ground was poor little Sunua, unable to speak, his words incomprehensible to the guards. Suanua, spotting Kong rounding the corner, scrambled to his feet and ran towards her, crying. The guards grabbed him. "You little brat." One scolded, then apologized to Kong, saying they would properly escort the child out. Seeing Suanua's pitiful, tear-streaked face and the yearning in his eyes, she sighed and told the guards to release him. The guards finally let go, and the moment he was free, ran to Kong, sobbing, and clung to her. Like a child reunited with its mother after a long separation. Little Suwa stuck to Kong like a chick to a hen. Kong sighed and urged him to let go. Yao stood nearby, radiating a dark aura. Kong asked Yao to excuse himself for a while, wanting to speak with Suanua alone. Though visibly disappointed, Yao eventually complied, giving Kong the space she requested. "I'm certain you weren't looking for me," Kong said. "You were looking for Master Tong Xiao, weren't you?" Suanua shook his head. "But you knew Master Tong Xiao's secret underground chamber was nearby, didn't you?" Kong pressed. Suanua nodded. "Yes, I don't know why you were looking for me, but I have something to tell you." Kong felt a knot of tension tighten in her stomach, anticipating the news. "Suanua, that's your name, right?" she asked. He nodded. Since Master Tong Xiao had no family, Suanua was the closest person to him, and that was why. She felt she had to tell him. It was the least she could do for both Master Tong Xiao and Suanua. She turned to him. "Master Tong Xiao has passed away." Tears streamed down Suanua's face, and he began to sob uncontrollably. Kong wasn't sure how to comfort him. For some reason, the image of the boy and the bird overlapped in her mind. After allowing Sunua a moment to grieve, she offered him a pouch of coins. "Take this," she said. "With this money, you can settle down in the village." With that, she had done all she could. Kong announced she was leaving. Fearful of being abandoned, Sunua clutched her sleeve, refusing to let go. "Don't worry," she soothed. "I heard they've already found villagers to look after you." He shook his head vehemently. "I'll also ask my father to find you a good foster father." Yao watched them from around the corner of a building. Suddenly, he heard Kong exclaim, "What are you doing?" "Wait." Sunua let go. He saw Suanua clinging desperately to her clothes. Yao burst from his hiding place and ran towards the pair. He grabbed Suanua by the scruff of his neck and lifted him into the air. "What are you doing?" Kong asked, alarmed. "He almost knocked you over," Yao replied. "Even so," she rebuked, "how can you grab him by the scruff of his neck so roughly?" "Yao," she cried, "let him go at once." He released his grip immediately. Suanua coughed, his throat raw. Kong asked if he was all right. Yao, flustered, apologized for his actions. Kong scoffed. "From the look in your eyes, you have no idea what you did wrong." Suanua grabbed her sleeve again, unable to articulate the plea in his heart. He could only express it through his actions. "Do you want to come with me?" Kong asked, finally understanding. Suanua's face broke into a radiant smile. The carriage continued towards its destination. Inside, Yao asked Kong why she hadn't let the boy follow her. "That boy, that little bird." "Oh, Suanua," she said. "Because it's too dangerous." She explained. The Bailey family is a Milan family. There's no reason to involve an ordinary person in a place like that. Furthermore, there would be a large-scale demonic war in the next few years. And under those circumstances, it would be even harder to guarantee Suanua's safety. Besides, when she couldn't even protect a bird, she didn't want to be responsible for another life. As things stood, she also needed to let Yao know that her position within the Bailey family wasn't currently high. The Nam Gong family were kind and treated her well. But back at the Bailey estate, the atmosphere will be different. Yao needed to remember that. At the Bailey estate, with its beautiful treescapes, tall and imposing buildings, corridor bridges, and clear blue waterways. By Li Yikong's father stood alone, a figure of stark solitude, as if he alone stood against the world. He sorrowfully recalled the times he had spent with his daughter, Yikong, looking down at the koi, remembering the last time they had walked here together. Yikong asked her father if koi had thoughts. He responded rhetorically, "Do any living creatures?" She said, "I don't like the koi with the white fin." He asked why. "It always steals everyone else's food." "Really?" Yikong said playfully. "Each koi has its own personality, like the one with 2 red spots on its back. It's always the last to come for food because it's so lazy. And that red one over there, always first when I feed them." When he sought his stepsister's help, her cold response darkened his mood. "I've thought about it," she retorted. "Why don't you tell father to bring back Pierre and document by Li Yikong is gone? There's no reason for my children to remain in that dark, elevated room." People scoffed. "Where is Beauvais village? Why would they go there? Why would Madame die there?" Another added, "Why should we travel all that way to retrieve a body?" Yikong stood alone in the vast Bailey estate, unable to find a single person genuinely worried or saddened by Li Yikong's death. He had done his best to avoid shaming the Bailey family and causing trouble, but what could he do about this blatant disregard? Just as his emotions threatened to overwhelm him, a voice called out, "Young master." "Young master." Yikong turned to see Ido running towards him. "What is it?" A frantic Ido announced. "The Nam Gong family is here. They say they found Madam." Yikong wiped his tears with his sleeve. "Really? Where have they taken her?" Ido's eyes widened. "Young master, that's not it. Madam is alive. They say she's alive." "Uncle Yuan," Yikong cried, raising her arms for a hug. Nam Gong Yuan, his face etched with relief, scooped her up. "You're truly safe and sound." Yikong beamed. He. Nam Gong Yuan asked, "But what's wrong with your eyes? You haven't gone blind, have you?" Ai Chin bowed. "Greetings, young master. The young Mrs. eyes are." Before Ai Chin could explain, Nam Gong Yuan held up 2 fingers. "Can you see this?" "How many?" 4. Her answer stunned everyone. Yikong giggled. "Haha, just kidding. It's 2. She held up 2 fingers in a peace sign. Nam Gong Yuan, momentarily speechless at the prank, finally exclaimed, "You're still laughing." Yikong apologized. Tears welled in Nam Gong Yuan's eyes. Holding Yikong close, he said, "Thank you for coming back." Yikong simply let him hold her, absorbing the reality of being alive. As the carriage journeyed towards the Nam Gong estate, Yikong explained what had happened while she was buried. "So, while looking through physician Tong Zhao's books, I found a way out of the imperial tomb. That's why it took so long." Nam Gong Yuan mused. "I never imagined that entire area was the site of an ancient imperial tomb." Yikong said, "Uncle Yuan, this is for you." She opened a box, revealing 2 vials. "Please take a look." He picked one up, examining it closely. "What is this? Could it be pure chi oil?" Pure chi oil is the elixir of immortality. A single drop can enhance one's inner strength. Nam Gong Yuan trembled, incredulous. To think there are 2 vials of such a precious elixir. Physician Tong Zhao's reputation truly precedes him. "You really did escape from Physician Tong Zhao's secret chamber." Yikong explained she wanted to give 1 vial to her father and the other to him. He looked surprised. Composing himself, he returned the vial to Yikong. "I'm fine. Uncle Yuan, your voice is trembling. You're imagining things." He crossed his arms, feigning reproach. "What kind of person do you take me for? I wouldn't covet something you nearly died to obtain." Yikong smiled. Pure chi oil was something any martial artist. He's giving up something he would have risked his life for. Is this what it means to be a close friend of her father? Ian took out the bottle. "Here, please take it. I told you I don't need it." Ian explained, "Even if this lucid oil is precious, I think Mr. Nam Gong, who didn't give up on me until the very end and found me, is more precious. So please accept it. My arm is about to break." He couldn't refuse her sincerity. "You little rascal. Thank you, Yun." He accepted the vial. After several days' travel by carriage, they finally arrived at the Nam Gong estate. They arrived at the home of this world's protagonist, Nam Gong Ryachang. When Ian had stayed at the Nam Gong estate before, Nam Gong Ryachang had been away at his maternal grandparents' house for 6 months. Lord and Lady Nam Gong aren't here, right? Bringing the final villain, Yo-Yo, to the protagonist's house feels a bit unsettling. Ian sighed. Still, we'll be leaving in a month, so it should be fine, right? That's what Ian thought, but Nam Gong 1 came out to greet them. I'm back. Ian's jaw dropped in surprise. Nam Gong 1's wife, Young Suk, also came out to greet them. It's so good to see you back safe. I was worried because you left with only a few guards. Nam Gong 1 replied, it was an emergency. There was no other way. Ian didn't understand why the lady was also there. Young Suk asked, is this Miss Baekrian? Ian introduced herself. Hello, I am Baekrian of the Baekrian family. Young Suk replied, yes, I heard you had a difficult journey. Nam Gong 1 walked towards his wife and asked, where's Raya Chang? She replied, Raya Chang is currently training. Preoccupied with various thoughts, Ian thought, the lady being here means Raya Chang is here too. Aren't they supposed to be at their maternal grandparents' house? Nam Gong 1 scolded, what does he mean training now? Didn't he hear I'm back? His wife replied with a smile. He heard, and then ignored it. I know that without you telling me. His wife replied with a smile. Yes. The angered Nam Gong 1 turned around to scold, I'll go, but was stopped by his wife. Wait, I also have a child to introduce to you. A child. Nam Gong 1's wife pointed at the little girl and said, say hello. She looked up at the tall Nam Gong 1 and greeted, hello. Oh, it's Ouyang Xiaorong from the Ouyang family. Ian's jaw nearly hit the floor. If she's Ouyang Xiaorong, isn't she the female protagonist of this story? Sitting down on a chair, Ian analyzed, things are unfolding differently from the past. Following Yaru, even the protagonist's actions have changed. Anxiety is creeping in. Where did things start to change? I don't even know if this change is good or bad. Based on the previous conversation, the head of the Nam Gong family, Nam Gong Muriyoung, one of the world's top 10 masters, seems to be here as well. Although I managed to deceive Nam Gong 1, can I keep hiding Yo-Yo here from one of the top 10 masters? A groan came from the window. Ian turned around, wondering, what's going on? A scream followed from the window. Yo-Yo, grabbing Ouyang Xiaorong's hand, shouted, what strength? Let go. It hurts. Seeing the commotion through the window, Ian asked, what are you two doing? Yo-Yo, still gripping her hand, replied, she was peeking through the window like a rat. Ouyang Xiaorong retorted angrily, who are you calling a rat? I was just curious. It hurts. Worry about the other girl. Ian called out softly, Yo-Yo, stop it. Let go first. Yo-Yo immediately released Ouyang Xiaorong's hand. She took a step back, putting distance between them. Ian reminded her, we've already introduced ourselves, right? I hope your wrist is all right. Mississippi Ouyang Xiaorong kicked Yo-Yo. After receiving a kick from Ikong, she stormed off, leaving a bewildered Yu and Ikong standing there. Yu asked, should I go after her? Ikong replied, no need. Besides that, are you all right? Yu asked. Yeah, Ikong answered. Miss Su is a swordswoman, so you can't twist her wrist like that, Ikong explained. Yu nodded. She said. The Su clan is a major sect around here, and the sect leader is quite renowned. Su Haiying was the daughter of that sect leader. Because Yu is a woman of few words, Ikong wasn't sure if she truly understood. Do you really understand what I'm saying? She asked. Yu remained silent, offering no reply. Ikong sighed and told her to come inside and apply some ointment to her leg. She said she was fine, but this worried Ikong. Before that, let's deal with my matter. This statement startled both Yu and Ikong. They turned to see the newcomer, a bald, elderly man, who could approach without making a single sound. Ikong observed with her eyes, noticing that the sphere of light in his dantian was the largest she had ever seen. He was incredibly powerful. He approached Yu and asked, oh, who is this child? Faced with this powerful opponent, Yu stumbled back in alarm. The old man pointed a finger at Yu, sending out several bursts of energy. Who allowed you to move like that? The situation frightened Ikong, and she shouted, what are you doing? Ikong stood on the windowsill and threw a punch towards Yu and the old man. Yu could see his movements, but her body couldn't fully evade them. She flew directly into the path of his energy-charged finger and then collapsed to the ground, clutching her chest in pain. This startled both Yu and the bald old man. The old man asked, how did you only dodge half of it? Ikong still clutched her chest, feeling a burning pain. The old man told her not to move. I've struck your vital point. If it's not neutralized now, you'll die. The old man pressed several pressure points on Ikong, causing her vision to blur. Seeing a different ceiling, Ikong finally woke up. Yu was standing beside her, tending to her. Just as she began to regain her senses, the old man, sitting in a chair, scolded, "Since you're awake, get up quickly." His reprimand brought her fully back to reality. Yu asked if she was all right. Ikong looked at Yu and saw that she was unharmed. She replied. Was his demonic cultivation discovered? She wondered to herself, looking at the old man. You don't even know how to thank your savior. Your eyes are truly disrespectful. Oh, Ikong. Wait, he was the one who struck my pressure points and nearly killed me. Not even thanking an elder for saving your life. You have quite the disrespectful gaze. Oh, Ian. No, wait, he's the one who struck my vital points and nearly killed me. But he was too powerful to argue with directly. Ikong swallowed her discontent and thanked him. Sir, thank you for your grace. The old man replied. Good. She asked, Sir, who are you? He crossed his arms and asked, Who do you think an elder like me would be? Ikong cursed inwardly. Damn, this guy really. Feigning patience, she asked, Please forgive me. Who can walk around this estate freely? I've given you enough hints. Can't you guess? Ikong thought carefully, and a clue came to mind. No way. Are you the patriarch of a Nam Gong clan? The old man straightened up proudly, pleased with the answer. He really was the patriarch of a Nam Gong clan. Ikong finally changed her demeanor, becoming serious. She stood up and bowed. Allow me to formally introduce myself. I am. All right, just sit down, the old man interrupted. But what are you here for? Well, I won't say much. Give me the pure chi oil, the old man commanded. What? Ikong was dumbfounded. Don't tell me you don't have it. I know you have it, Nam Gong Luchong said. Even if I do, why should I hand it over to the Nam Gong clan patriarch? Ikong retorted. Stroking his beard, the elderly man replied, It would be best to hand it over while I'm still being polite. It's something you stole from the omniscient physician anyway. Ikong countered, No, I received permission from the omniscient physician. Since even her abilities are derived from the omniscient physician, it belongs to her. The elderly man erupted in laughter. Ha! The omniscient physician gave it to you. Ha ha! He slammed his fist on the table, cracking the surface. You've got some nerve. Yu stepped in front of Ikong, shielding her from the oppressive aura emanating from the elderly man. You dare bring a demonic cultivator into the Nam Gong estate, and now you try to deceive me. Isn't that enough? Hand it over while I'm still being civil. Ikong panicked. Oh heavens, he's found out. Regarding Yu, she explained, Yu isn't a demonic cultivator. He was forced to learn demonic cultivation. The elderly man roared, Excuses, excuses. Even if I, an elder, tear you both to shreds here, no one would dare say a word. Ikong retorted, Do you want to start a war with the Bai clan? The elderly man stood and advanced towards Ikong. You think I don't know how you're treated in the Bai clan? Hand over the purifying chi oil, and I'll pretend I didn't see that, brat. What do you say? Of course, if you refuse, it will cost you your life. After careful consideration, Ikong finally let him take it. Please guarantee you use safety. Guarantee? You mean if you use demonic cultivation is exposed? You want me to protect him? My father, out of concern for me, turns a blind eye to Yu's abilities. He hasn't even told Mr. Nam Gong Yuan, all because he worries about my situation. The elderly man replied with a pleased grunt. Ikong picked up the box. Even if the Nam Gong clan finds out about Yu, you must ensure it doesn't negatively impact my father. She opened the box, and the elderly man stared greedily at the vial. Fine, I guarantee it. Before the elderly man could snatch the purifying chi oil, Ikong closed the box. The elderly man roared in frustration. Are you mocking an elder? Ikong covered her mouth. No, I just need to confirm something. Sir, you aren't the Nam Gong clan patriarch, are you? You little brat, if you're trying to play tricks. Ikong replied, I'm not saying I won't give it to you. Just give me your undeniable guarantee regarding Yu's safety using your full name. Yu flushed crimson at Ikong's ultimatum. If you make it clear, I won't ask any further questions, she stated. The elderly man, with an air of satisfaction, turned to leave. Peeking from behind a pillar, Ikong breathed a sigh of relief. He's finally gone. Despite the loss of the oil, a triumphant smile played on her lips. She was glad she'd had the foresight to prepare a backup, just in case. But she felt she should give it to her father. While Ikong was basking in her own cleverness, Yu was shrouded in a dark cloud. Ikong turned and asked, What's wrong with him? Yu only sank further into despair, as if wanting to dig a hole and bury himself. No matter how many times Ikong called his name, he didn't respond. She patted his back and called him again, and the despairing Yu finally spoke. It's all because of me. Yuan Zanking J.O., former Crimson Demon. That's that damned elder's identity. Simply put, it's not your fault. No matter how strong your true power is, it's impossible to come and go freely from the Nam Gong estate. The entire Nam Gong estate was teeming with experts. Only one person, granted free reign from the start, could have discovered her 2 vials of clear chi oil within half a day. That person was Nam Gong Musite Qianzhongjianja, the younger brother of the Nam Gong clan's patriarch. That was back when Qianzhongjianja was still alive. Ian sighed, while Yue remained utterly oblivious to her thoughts. Who is Qi Asong Yang Hyop? He asked. You don't know. Ian asked, surprised. Yue shook his head. Well, Ian explained. He's one of the 11 strongest people in the world, but he's an eccentric, belonging neither to the orthodox nor the unorthodox sects, famous for doing as he pleases. In short, you could say he's an incredibly powerful and quirky individual. Yue's spirits sank even lower. Ian smiled and called to him, Yue, your life was saved by the clear chi oil. You can't say your life is worthless now. A spark of life finally returned to his eyes. He bent down and hugged her tightly, overwhelmed with gratitude. Ian allowed the embrace only for a moment, patting his back in consolation. The next day, she was invited to dine in the Green Hall. Arriving, Ian was struck by the hall's opulence and found everyone already seated. She had specifically made an effort to arrive early. Ian apologized for her tardiness. It's all right. We just arrived early because we had something to discuss. Don't worry about it, the elder replied. Ian noticed his internal energy was similar to Qi Asong Yang Hyop's, and his eyes resembled Nam Gong Yi's. This man truly was the patriarch. Ian bowed. Beck Ian of the Beck family. Greetings to the Nam Gong clan. Nam Gong Yi's wife gestured. This is my son, Nam Gong Ryukin. Nam Gong Ryukin. Ian's eyes widened, recalling their first encounter in her past life. She had still been wearing her mourning clothes from her father's funeral when she met Ryukin, tears streaming down his face. He had asked, "Are you Miss Beck Ian of the Beck family?" Now, only she remembered. She greeted Ryukin. According to the original novel, she fell in love with Ryukin and committed all sorts of misdeeds to win his heart. So she was a little worried, but seeing him completely ignore her presence. Ian was certain, yes, there was absolutely no need to worry about falling for him. That jerk. She refused to live a tragic life like the one in the original novel. Nam Gong, he seemed about to scold Ryukin for his attitude, but his wife tried to soothe him. Now. She turned to Ian. Miss Beck, please have a seat. Ian sat down, praying silently. Please continue to treat me like air. That's what she thought, but why? Oh, why did Haryong keep staring at her? Haryong's bright, shining gaze of admiration made Ian nervous. The admiring gazes made Ian feel uneasy. We've now caught up with the manhwa. Please like, share, and subscribe for quicker releases of your favorite manhwa.